Okay, so starting over. Hang on, we're gonna walk us in again. One more time. Welcome, guys. We missed a week, and I'm so sorry for that, but 'twas 2 days before Christmas, and all through your speakers, you guys will sit and listen to us two stinkers. As you sit and question, what the heck? We will be giving you your weekly gaming wreckage with Damage Check. Welcome in, guys. Woo, woo, woo.
Man, that was impressive, honestly. I mean, I heard it 2 times, but even the second time, I'm like, damn, he's got the chops. He's got the rhyming skills.
Yeah, I had to write that up real quick right before we went in. I was like, I just want to do this. It's so fun because it's the Christmas episode. Yes, yeah. Let's go.
I'm wearing my Christmas attire. Before this, you said, what's on your sweater? And I was like, you do recognize it. And I want to let you know that it is the Mistborn ugly Christmas sweater.
I love that.
From good old Brandon Sanderson over at
We
Dragon's
love
Steel.
Brandy Sandy. We love him.
We do. 3 more books until I'm done with all of his work. So
I heard Stormlight is getting a new piece soon, right?
Yeah, Wind and Truth comes out next year, and I am not ready. It will destroy me.
Awesome. I still need to finish the first one, but A Way of Kings. Either way, so yeah, let's start. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I tell everybody, book 3 of Stormlight Archive, Oathbringer, change your life.
I believe you.
Change my life.
I believe you.
But anyways, that's book talk. Let's talk about games. We're here for Damage Check.
All right. So what have you been playing? We'll start with you since you we both missed a week, but you were out for a while. So what's been going on in your life?
I went back home to the good old Bay Area. I mean, I call that home even though it's not where I'm from, but I feel like it's home. Went back for some Christmas stuff. Was a quick whirlwind trip of about 3 days. But I played a bunch of games on the airplane. Namely, I played a lot of Sea of Stars.
Mm-hmm.
Made a lot of good progress on that. And then also played a lot of Legends of Runeterra, the League of Legends card game, because it was just easy to play on a tablet and fun to play. But I mean, I still that's kind of the card game I've stuck with, and it's still really, really good fun. Once I got back, though, I did try to get through a couple of other games. I tried out the new God of War Valhalla DLC, which is fantastic. It is so damn good.
It looked like a lot of fun.
Even beyond it being just a lot of fun, like, it's basically a roguelike version of God of War,
right?
Which I think is great because the God of War games within themselves, unless you turn it onto the harder difficulties, they're fairly simple. You can button mash your way through in a lot of cases.
Oh, so the truth comes out.
I mean, yeah, if you're on the lower difficulties, I'm not on the lower difficulties though.
Oh, flex.
But in this Valhalla DLC, they like really make you be like, okay, you can't just button mash your way through this now. You have to actually like do your combos, do your attacks, do all your different stuff. And so it made it a lot of fun. But also, I don't want to spoil anything because if you're a God of War fan, like this is made for not just the new God of War fans, but like if you've been around since the first one, they've got some stuff in here that is pretty insane. And it also is a really cool look at, the story in God of War has been phenomenal for a while, and it's cool having that story now look back on where it came from on like the original PS2 titles, where it was just, Kratos is an angry boy that wants to kill Ares. And so it evolved a lot there. I haven't beat the DLC yet, but I got a decent way through it. And then, just played some Avatar here and there and some Destiny here and there. Avatar, I feel like I'm probably going to be playing for a while. Like I thought I was going to try to burn through it this week, but then I started doing that and I was like, this is kind of taking the enjoyment out of it. Like the enjoyment comes from, the enjoyment comes from like being in it and like being immersed in it. And so I've decided that that's just going to be a game that I chip away at an hour or two, at a time. And when I beat it, I beat it. But what about you? What'd you get up to?
Quite a bit. I haven't really played RuneScape, surprise, this time around. But I did a little bit. I am running out of membership, and I didn't want to re-up on a full year. Well, I could pay gold. I don't like to do that because I feel like I earned that gold, and I don't want to pay for time. You know what I mean? So, But then I did some Destiny again. This season is so good. Had a lot of fun with the boys. We've been playing the dungeon and a little bit of the season missions. Very fun. Couple things that's still like just Destiny tropey seasonal stuff. But overall, fantastic season. Probably one of the best seasons, if not definitely the best dungeon that we've had in a long time, if not period. I love the lore. It's a very fun dungeon. It feels like I'm getting into the game instead of just playing it like I typically do. So I'm really enjoying it. And then we did make a big purchase this week.
That's right.
Yeah, we got the MetaQuest 3, and we got Asgard's of Wrath 2. I haven't got to play it enough yet, but I think it's really cool. However, I'm not a VR guy, I realized.
Like, just at all? Like,
I just don't think I like it. I just think it's too... I wouldn't say it's too boring. I should say it's not enough. Like, because when you first put that helmet on and you start playing around with it, you're like blown away. Because it is so cool that it changes everything around you. And it can really make you feel adrenaline and all kinds of stuff that you wouldn't be able to experience unless you have this like full sensory deprivation headset on. Like, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm over it. Like after a couple, maybe not even like 30 minutes, I'm like, okay. Like I climbed a ladder and it felt like I was really climbing, and that was really cool. And then, you shoot a bow and stuff like that. It's like, damn, that's cool. I'm over it. But I can say, I think that the longer you play, the more you'll get into it. I think right now it just seems a little bland because I'm in the I'm talking super intro tutorial stages still.
Okay.
But what was very annoying is and Sirens can back me up on this, I was playing for probably about an hour, and it was all cutscenes. Like, they didn't want me to do anything. And I'm like, if you wanted to make me watch a movie, just make me watch a movie. An hour of intro cutscenes and tutorials is too long for any game. Especially with VR, the whole point of putting the headset on is like, I'm ready to get into the action. Like, I understand the cutscene is an experience too, because it was cool. Don't get me wrong. But HP want to play. And so... I don't know.
That it always comes back to HP want to play. No story, no cinematics, only play.
There's a time for cinematics, and it's popcorn time when you're chilling back. I actually wouldn't mind I can't say it is an incredible piece of technology, because being fully wireless, having it's like the front cameras so you can like have pass through. It is mind blowing how good it is. Like, I can connect it wirelessly to my computer, no Bluetooth. It just connects through my Wi-Fi. It is insane how cool it is, though. Like, I'm not trying to downplay it. And yeah, and like Jones said, the battery life is only like 2 hours. So you give me an hour to play the game and I'm not even playing it, then I'm just wasting my time.
So do you feel like, because I've been on the fence with VR. We've actually talked about this a little bit on the podcast, where I'm like almost there, almost ready to buy in. Do you think this is the time to buy in, or do you still think we're maybe a generation off tech wise?
I think the tech is there. I think that the software is not. I don't know what we need. I mean, dude, if you really want the craziest experience, I think that ultimately this form of media, like this VR virtual reality set, is going to have to be renting out rooms or doing like a Chuck E. Cheese type thing or whatever. Like there's, like a place you can go where you get an experience. Like escape rooms, but imagine you go to a place and you play like it's not only is it VR, but it's kind of like a real room that you're in. So like there's a place, it's called like The Void. I think it's in like Illinois or something, or
it's in Disneyland as well. I've been there.
So they have like rat maze walls kind of deal, and you put on the headset and the walls are mapped to the headset, so you can really feel real walls. And they have like heaters like pumping out heat, and you would put your hand up there and you'd feel like a flame, but you'd see it in the headset. That's an experience, I feel like. So I think that we're there. I think it just needs to be something like that. I don't think home VR things are really where it's at, because, I mean, what is everybody even playing VR other than like Beat Saber? I mean, other games, they all feel like tech demos. Every game feels like a tech demo.
Well, I am interested, definitely get back to us on Asgard's Wrath too, because I've definitely heard people say that like, oh, this is like it, like this.
But I didn't know if that was like game. I've been hearing that too, but I'm like, are these peer reviews or are these industry reviews? Because industry reviews, they're probably just trying to push it and sell it. You know what I mean? Because the MetaQuest 3 just came out. It got like a 10 out of 10. Is it really that good?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I've seen.
I'll play it this week and I'll report back.
Yeah, I would definitely love to hear your thoughts on it because if true, because the only other experience that I've ever heard from VR that people are like, other than Beat Saber, the only other experience I've heard is Half-Life Alyx as being like oh no, this is like the package, like this is the game.
I have not played Half-Life yet, so I know that might be pretty good because I've heard that is really good.
Yeah, I've heard that is like the system seller. But at the same time, am I gonna buy $1,000 VR headset from Valve? Probably not. I mean, if Valve came out with the Valve Index 2, I feel like that's probably when I would jump in. But MetaQuest 3 has been making it tempting because with everyone saying how good Asgard's Wrath 2 is, I'm like, I could see myself picking it up because there now is getting to a point where I do think there are enough titles that are at least decent enough. Beat Saber, Asgard's Wrath, potentially Half-Life Alyx. There are titles that are starting to build up to where it could be worth it. But I do wonder, you mentioning the software, I wonder how far out we are from us getting to a better software slate, I guess. I know PSVR's had a couple that I've heard people talk about as being not your typical, like, I'm the person and like first person kind of shooter vibe. I've heard
what else could you do?
Well, because the two that I know from PlayStation VR side was Moss and
I tried to play that. That's the little mouse game, right?
Yeah, a little mouse game. And so you're kind of like the spirit and you're kind of controlling the world for the mouse or something.
No, I played the Fox one. And it was kind of tech demo-y too, but that made me sick.
Okay. The other one I've heard is Astro's Rescue Mission, which is like a 3D platformer VR game. And it's kind of a similar thing where like you are controlling Astro, but you're also kind of controlling the world around Astro through VR. It's hard to explain because I feel like anytime you look at like gameplay of a VR game, it just does not do it justice, which is probably another thing they need to figure out is how do you make a VR trailer kind of sell, kind of actually make people go, oh, actually I do want to jump into that without it being in VR,
Yeah, I think I just need to get a hold of the reins a little bit more. Playing Beat Saber feels great because something is coming at you and you are standing still doing the things, right? Or if you're playing like a game where like the tech demo stuff where you're like shooting a gun and then you're aiming at the things in front of you, or you're shooting a bow or whatever, or the Spider-Man one where you're just slinging across the city. But like you're kind of like you're interacting with the world kind of as it is in front of you. When it starts to get into this, like they want you to be in this 3D space and they want you to like turn and look around behind you when you're moving so much. I want to say this sounds silly because it's almost the opposite, but it takes me out of it because I feel like I'm focused more on the controls and not being sick and motion sick and turning and moving and teleporting forward and I'm moving in this 3D space. I kind of like it when, even though it's there's someone out there is going to be a genius to be able to develop software that's not tech demo-y. I guess, Beat Saber is not really, but what is it? It's just just a rhythm game. But I like that. I could jump into Beat Saber and if I was good at it, I would play it for hours and just go all the time because like that's fun to me. It feels amazing. The response is incredible. But the moment I get into like I played Robo Recall for a little bit, amazing. It feels really cool when you're ripping the robots apart. It actually feels like there's no resistance there, but because of the visuals, it feels like there is resistance and like that kind of stuff is really cool. But when you move around too much, it almost like maybe it's different for some people, but I don't know. I think I just have to maybe find my pocket and find where I need to be in it. I don't know.
That is a very interesting thought, though, of like games, if you even look at the history of like how video games have, developed over the years from going from like 2D spaces to 3D spaces. Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe it is just kind of that awkward teenage era where it's like 3D spaces just still aren't 100% there, but these stationary, they are 3D spaces, but you're stationary, you're not moving in, you're just kind of in a position doing a thing. That would make sense that would kind of feel like the more fleshed out titles because they're not trying to push the boundaries as much, I guess. Interesting. I'm really excited to get a VR because I really would love to have more of an opinion on this stuff and like have more insight into it.
I would love to hear it and see how you feel about it. I think one game that I didn't end up purchasing, and then one game that I do have that I did enjoy, but they're just, again, they're kind of tech demo-y in the sense of like you're not going to play them all the time, but I think that there's something there that they have longevity for, but I don't know what it is yet. But it's a game. One of the game is called it's escaping me now. It's like it starts with a D. It's like DAV. Davius or some, I don't remember what it's called, but it's some weird name. But it's basically a asymmetrical boss fighter. So like you would be on your computer playing mouse and keyboard against me, the big boss. So I'm in the VR and I'm throwing things at you, and you have to like dodge and shoot arrows at me and stuff like that. But I'm like coming at you, you know? That's really cool. But that's not the one that I have. Cool. I don't know if that one's out fully yet, but that one interests me a lot. And then there's another one that I do have, and I also, again, forgive me for this, but I don't remember what it's called, but it's basically the same concept. You would be on the ground running around, and there's like a million little NPCs that look just like you. And I have to find out which one's the real one. So you're trying to get to the top of the tower to hit my head, and as you get to and as you're walking to the top, there's a billion other little dudes running around. So you can like walk into the wall and act like you're an NPC and try to, you know, like mess me up. So I'm like, if I see like real looking movement, like if I see you jump or something, I'm like, oh, there he is, and I try to follow you, but then there's like walls that you can hide behind, and then there's a bunch of scattering. So it's like a Where's Waldo in the game, like, and it's very fun. So I think that type of stuff would I don't know where we go from there, but when I saw those, I'm like, that's it. That's the kind of VR that I want to play.
Yeah, the concepts are there. Just people smarter than us need to now take those concepts and figure out where we're going with them.
Right.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, definitely report back on the Asgard's Wrath too, though, because I want to know if it's the system seller, if it's the one that's gonna really push, you know, besides Alex, because like I said, I've heard Alex also does the same.
Right. Okay. We want to go into our first main topic.
Yeah, what you got for me?
So we this one has a couple subcategories here, but we're gonna start with GTA 6. But there's a lot of GTA 6 news coming out.
All right.
And it's not even out yet. We're still a year and a half away from this game, but here we go. So, right. So the first, I want to go in like significance. So the first one I want to say is probably, we're going to talk about the GTA 6 is confirmed not coming to PC first.
No surprise.
No surprise, but big bummer, because what are you doing, Rockstar? They know that they're going to get a double dip, right?
I mean, yeah, I think somebody went on interview and essentially said that, where it's like, we know we can double dip them. They're going to buy it on whatever console they have.
Why do we tolerate that as consumers? Like, because it's so good? That's unfortunate.
Because it's GTA 6. I mean, I don't think a lot of other games can get away with it. You could make an argument that Sony kind of does with theirs because they come out on PlayStation first and then come out on PC. I think that's less them trying to double dip. They do get double dips, I'm sure, but that's more so them just being like, hey,
yeah, but it's intention versus.
Yeah, exactly. We want to make sure it works on PlayStation, and then we can make the process of bringing it to PC and getting a wider audience. And so I think it's just GTA 6 knows that, or Rockstar kind of knows they just own the world right now.
Yeah, it's true.
Will that last? Will that last forever? I grow more and more skeptical that it will. As we've seen, Call of Duty owned the world for a while, and now it's kind of, I mean, it's still big. Don't get me wrong, but it's also not, what it was back in like the early 2010s, where like, the new Modern Warfare or Black Ops came out, and like that was it. That was all that mattered that entire month.
Very true.
And so, I am a little surprised that it's not going to be coming day and date this time around, because I thought that we would have gotten to the point now where they would have been like, yeah, let's just release it all at once. But
they get that double dip money. They're pinching. Yeah, I mean, they even got mad when people like leak their. I mean, I understand that you don't want leaks, but it's one thing to like they dropped their entire trailer early because it leaked somewhere early, which I didn't even know where it leaked. I didn't even see it, but they apparently saw it. Yeah, so they apparently saw it, but it's like the people are still. I guarantee you, like what's the trailer have 100 million or more views? It would still have had that many views when they released it. So they're just trying to get the money out of it. But it's like, just, you know what I mean? I don't know. It's just,
I mean, but
they deserve it. Don't get me wrong.
to play devil's advocate, to be the protector of the shareholders, I will say, I mean, the cost of the game is astronomical. I think they've said that it's going to be like over $1 billion to develop this game. And so, like, I get it. When you spend $1 billion on making a game, I can totally understand that you are going to be penny pitching. You're going to be like, we got to make money in every avenue possible, because that is a lot.
Right.
A lot of money to make that game. And that's not even, making the continuous content that I'm sure they're going to for like GTA Online.
Oh, yeah, for years.
Yeah, so I get it. I totally get it.
Right.
But it does suck.
And I'm for it. I mean, they earned it. They're the one creating the content. I would protect anyone in that case. Like, even one person with 1 subscriber, or someone as big as Rockstar. Like, if you are uploading something, you don't want it leaked out. You don't want it spread across other places to where you need to make your money. You created this content. And so I'm for that 100%. I guess if they are worried that they won't be getting their money back, not necessarily getting their money back, but worried that... I mean, they want their money. I mean, there's nothing else to say about that. They want their money. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, they want their money, and I get it. I totally get it, but it does suck, especially because the last thing I'll bring up about it, we talked about before. One of the things we would love to see with GTA 6 was kind of the built-in integration of the whole role-playing aspect. That team that they acquired, right?
Or mod support in general immediately.
Or something like that. And so I thought that was them getting that purchase kind of made me think like, oh, they're going to do PC right off the bat. Because if I'm not mistaken, that only works on the PC version.
Probably.
I could be wrong. They could have found other ways, but so that's what I thought. But regardless, here we are, all just at Rockstar's whim.
Now we can get to the more scummy part of GTA 6. A publisher says that they want to charge games by the hour.
Yeah.
So I don't think any gamer in the world is happy about that one. Because some of these games we would have went broke. I mean, Rainbow Six Siege for me, Destiny,
The thing with this leads to a bigger conversation that we're going to have a little bit later on.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely would love to get it started right now. And that's game studios, game publishers, and everything are going to start testing the limits of what they can do monetization wise, because there is a shift happening in the industry where consumers are getting tired of microtransactions. Consumers are getting tired of your battle passes and stuff like that. I don't think that stuff's going to necessarily go away. I think it's still going to hang around, but because it's going to experience a dip in profit, they now are going to have to find other ways to make money. And so I feel like them saying this is them essentially seeing how mad would people get if we did this? And the answer is probably significantly mad. I don't think this ends up happening, but I would not be surprised. I'll say it right now. We clip this and save it in a time vault. GTA 6 is not going to be $70. GTA 6 is going to be $80+ at least, just for the base game purchase.
I would agree with that.
And I think that's a shift that we're seeing happen across the industry, where we did the $70 price jump, and people are like, okay, so we're going to stick at $70 for a while, right? And the answer is probably not. I think that it took a while for us to go from 60 to 70. I do not think it's going to take us nearly as long to get from 70 to 80, if not even higher.
I would imagine a world where we live where GTA 6 is $100 base.
Yeah.
Just to even it out and be like, hey, we're giving you a lot of content. The charge by hour thing is obviously upsetting to anyone who has a brain. But at the same time, there's a world where I wouldn't say that it's fair, because I don't want to be that person, because I feel like when I buy something, if I'm putting the time into it, there's a thing. So for example, I would have paid more for a game like Celeste, because it's incredible. I love that game. I paid $20. It always goes on sale for $5. You're burglarizing the company. I mean, that's insane, because that game is so good. I would have easily paid $40 or more for something like Celeste, the enjoyment that I got out of it, if not way more than $40. I think personally I would have paid $60. I think it's worth $40. I'm happy that people can get it for $5. But that being said, per hour is a little weird because, like, are we charging cents per hour? Are we charging $1 per hour? Is it something like this is where I wouldn't mind it, and I don't think that this is going to be the case. But like, let's say I don't want to play this game all the time, but I like playing it with my friends on the weekend. I don't want to pay. Let's say that it is 80, in a couple years. All right, it's $80. Well, I don't really want to play GTA 6 that much. I like it, but I don't like it as much as my friends do. So if I could pay $1 or $2 for the weekend, I would love to do that because that's the lesser price of it. Now, then we start getting into, well, you made your game very fun and I like to play it. You mean I owe you $1,000? You know what I mean? Like, so then on the other side, that's when it gets absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, and if this did end up coming to pass, that might end up actually being the way they maybe pitch it is, hey, you're probably going to save money over time because, typically you would buy this game for $80, but, you're only going to give it 10 hours. So why not just pay us, $10 or $20 for those 10 hours or something.
Right.
And that actually is dangerously close to what I think they probably could pitch this as if they wanted to.
Exactly. And I think that is bad because eventually that makes it worse for the higher end people, but better for the lower end people.
And I think it's also bad because the way that your game would now end up being designed to
like
be
a taxi cab.
To be built around that, I feel like we'd get worse games because of it. I still think I'm hoping that they've read the tea leaves about what's been happening with like live service games well enough that they understand that doing this is actually going to just be detrimental to the industry, or at least to them in the long run. But one thing I could see with this, I was thinking about while you were talking, is instead of doing like the whole the whole game, it made me think of like, what if Trials of Osiris was a charge by hour game mode or something like that? Not necessarily Trials, but like a weekend game mode becomes charged by hour. GTA has this weekend game mode. It has incredible, rewards. You get all this stuff, you're going to like do all this thing, and you can either pay real money for it or you can pay in-game currency per hour that you are in that activity. I think that's probably something they would actually probably do, is try to, instead of get rid of the $80 price tag, try to just staple on a game mode that says you'll pay us, I don't know, 50 cents an hour, $1 an hour, whatever it might be, every weekend to go through this super lucrative, game mode of like, oh, you're going to go on a heist that you pay per hour and you're going to get insane rewards that you can't get anywhere else. Which would be awful, but
it would be awful. And I think that leads into the, like, this is basically a redisguised battle pass, essentially. Right.
I mean, yeah,
and everything is, and I think that if we go down this route, and when you first initially mentioned it, you said we're going to get worse quality games. I would agree with that. Or they're going to go back to the 80s and they're going to make it to where games are super hard up front, to where they're quarter eaters. They wanted to eat your quarters. Like the Lion King is stupid hard, or whatever. Like all these arcade games were so hard back in the day. They were impossibly hard. Mortal Kombat, one of them, they designed it to be almost impossible to beat because in the arcade versions, because they want to just eat your quarters. And they never wanted you to fully win. They wanted you to keep inserting quarters. So games, we could start seeing not necessarily a drop off in maybe quality, but might be what the case is happening.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, because they would have the design of the game, and that's a perfect like case in point of what the monetization of a game does to the design of a game. And so I 100% think we would see stuff like that where it's like, yeah, this game is like stupid difficult, or it's like stupid grindy to get the things that you want. So yeah, if you want to get, the sort of Glyffindor or whatever, you've got to like grind for 30 hours and pay, $1 per hour on that stuff, which, man, that would really, talking about this more, I'm like, that would really suck.
Yeah, it would.
Time is already, money is no longer like the real thing that they're fighting for. I feel like in the industry, or like in the future, I feel like money is not the thing they're going to be fighting for. It's going to be your time. How can they monetize that time?
Yeah.
Because now there's just so many games, so many ways you could go about playing, anything from indie all the way up to like the biggest live service, Fortnite coming out with all their different game modes, doing their metaverse stuff. there's just not enough time. And so I feel like they're monetizing that time is probably something a lot of them are very interested in. Man, this sucks. I hate this conversation.
I don't either. I don't like it either. So I think, like, is there not a world where multiplayer games, and I know we've tested this in the past, and I don't remember what games did it, but why isn't there a world where multiplayer games just kind of get funded by advertisements? Because, like, I wouldn't care if I'm playing Call of Duty multiplayer and in the background I see the high-rise billboard say Mountain Dew. I don't care.
I mean, they've tried that with a couple of games. They've tried that with a couple games. I think some of the FIFA games, they've got like paid advertisements within the game. And I think it might have been like 2K, like NBA 2K something or another, has also done similar
sports things make sense. I feel like sports is all advertisement all the time.
Yeah, and so they did that a few years ago. As far as other games, I mean, I think that advertising within the game gets really kind of messy. And I think you can look at a lot of like, say, like YouTube content, and also like things like Twitter, where it's like, you're an advertiser, you're going to pay to be in Call of Duty. Wait a second. What did that 12-year-old kid just call that other person in the game chat? Oh, I do not want my advertisements in this game.
Okay. Yeah. I guess that's where it gets a little muddy because they can't control that.
Yeah, I think multiplayer games would become difficult unless they had like a lot of stuff in there. You know, like I know Call of Duty's been working on a lot of technology for like, censoring and like detecting a lot of that kind of stuff within the games. And so like if that technology comes far enough, I could see it. I don't want it, but I could see it.
I mean, even go the mobile route, just like right before the game of Call of Duty. So like, you know, like when you spawn in, like I haven't played Call of Duty in a while, but you spawn in and it's like a black and white screen, and it's like 5, 4, 3, 2, and then you spawn. During that 5 seconds, you'd be like, "This game brought to you by Mountain Dew," and then you can pay like 50 cents to not have that up on your screen. But like, it doesn't actually, affect your gameplay because it's just pre-game stuff. I wouldn't even mind that.
We're giving the publishers way too many ideas right now.
But I mean, that's better. Okay, look, that's a lucrative idea only for the sense that I don't want to be charged per hour, dude.
I mean, here's the reality is, and I've been saying this for years at this point. I remember saying this when Witcher 3 came out. And this is an opinion I hold very high, which is we got to start charging more for games, because the problem is if we don't start charging more for games, we're gonna get this type of shit in the games where it's gonna be like, I'm about to get this final blow brought to you by Mountain Dew. It's like, fuck, dude, like, right. I don't want.
Yeah, that would be ridiculous. I'm saying, within reason, but yeah, that is a bit ridiculous.
And so that's why I feel like the better way to go about this is just start charging more for games. And I know people will complain about it and be like, price per hour and all that kind of stuff and bring up all these different arguments. But the reality is these games take a lot to make, man. And it is better for everybody if we just charge more for it up front. You don't have to get it right away. It's still going to go on sale. Sales are still going to exist. That $100 game will eventually be $30, and you can go buy it for $30 and feel good about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that we need to start understanding that games need to start getting charged more for. But I also think on that same coin is we need to start charging games for what they're worth and not just necessarily an arbitrary price. If let's say GTA charges $100 for GTA, or Rockstar charges $100 for GTA 6. That now doesn't mean that every game ever needs to be $100, which unfortunately is what a lot of publishers will say.
We'll start to do. Yeah,
GTA 6 got $100, but at the same time, a lot of these publishers need to understand
not the same caliber.
How much is your game actually worth?
Like GTA 6 would be worth higher than a normal price game because it is this open world. It's this full experience that you're with. It's a multiplayer. You can come back to it every day. Whereas no offense, but your God of Wars and your Zeldas and stuff, that you're playing through this open world expanse, but once. This linear experience, but once. And you might have replayability, sure, but you're not offering the same thing that GTA is offering. It's not that it's better, it's completely different. It's a completely different experience, which values it a little bit higher, I would say.
And I think they need to explore the scale and say that, where it's like God of War, some people would pay $100 for it, but the reality is you need to look at it and say, is this a $70, $80, $60, whatever that type of game is, and make sure that you're trying to charge the right price for it, because I think there's an art to that. If you charge the right price for something, you're gonna get the maximum value out of it. And charging $100, just charging the highest amount you can charge, isn't going to do that. A perfect example of this is there was a game that came out for PS4 called The Order 1886. It was a Sony first-party game, and I loved it. I thought it was a great game. It's extremely short and extremely linear. It has like zero replayability, and it is about 5 hours, maybe 6 if you stretch it. And they charged $60 for it. And it kind of got bad reviews, and everyone kind of like poo-pooed on it and stuff. But I think if that game would have came out at $50, people would have been like, oh, this is pretty good, actually.
Right, exactly.
And, you know, unfortunately, because it didn't do very well, they set it up for a sequel. They definitely thought they were going to get a sequel. And unfortunately, we did not, which sucks because the story was really, 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 really fucking cool. And I would have loved to see a sequel to it. But that's, I think, an example of you need to play with the scale. Just because you can charge the maximum, you know, allowed price of a game doesn't mean necessarily should. Think about what you're actually providing.
Especially from the industry. Product. Like these AAA companies think that, oh, well, I'm a AAA, so $70 it is. Like, nah, we don't have to do that.
And yeah, I think you know, we've already seen it with, you know, Destiny charges $100 up front, right, for the year. And I think even then they should probably charge more. I think we should probably be getting up to like $120 for that. If not even maybe another like $10.
For what you get, I would kind of agree with that. For what you get.
You get a whole year, you get so much content, so much stuff to go with it. And so it's kind of the same thing as like the GTA thing where it's like, yeah, if they charge me $100 base, it's like,
Makes sense.
I get it. Like, yeah. That's gonna be a massive world with tons of variety. There's an online mode that's gonna be basically endless. Like it's gonna be worth that amount of money. Like I said, back when Witcher 3 came out and I played it, I was like, yeah, this game's worth $100. Like you could charge $100 for this game, and I personally would not have thought you would have been ripping people off at that point.
Pasta brings up a good point. If AI development makes games cheaper, then I don't want expensive games, to be honest. The thing is I fully agree with that, and we could make a whole podcast about AI in human art, and that's a discussion I do want to have. And we actually have an AI point to talk about later, but yeah, I could go in on AI stuff for a long time because I'm right on the fence, and I hate it more than I love it. But I think that there needs to be some boundaries. But I would agree with that. I think that if they are, which they are, and they're most certainly are in the next few years, going to be using AI to help be a catalyst to expedite their processes, then. Hey man, stop making them so expensive. Then if you got a robot doing all the work for you, then what do you charge it for?
Yeah, I definitely think at some point, probably soon, we should have a AI episode where we kind of talk about like how we think AI is going to affect the industry, because it most definitely is. It's already affecting it in some regards. That's what we're going to talk about.
And we have a small topic later.
Yeah. And so we'll definitely talk about that soon, and I want to do some research on it too to kind of see what I think AI could end up replacing, and if it would be I probably get flamed for this, but if it would be a good or bad thing. But we'll get to I'll cross that burning bridge later.
Yeah. I cringe at this subject so hard, man. We can move on to the next topic. We do have this isn't really much of a segue, but it does segue from our previous talks about Game Awards and stuff like that. We're going to be talking about E3 coming to an end. They have announced that the producers and stuff have announced that they're not doing E3 anymore. I don't have much to say about that, but I do have a question for you.
Yeah, what's up?
Do we need it?
I don't think so. I think we've needed it for the past 4 or 5 years at this point. I think in a rare instance of foresight, I think Nintendo is actually very smart, being the first ones to get out and
do the directs.
Yeah, they kind of just realized, like, guys, what are we doing? We can just talk directly to our consumers. Like,
exactly.
We don't need a third party to facilitate it.
It's an outdated model for sure. I get hype about it because so look at this. When companies are like Rockstar, they have their own YouTube channel, they upload a video, they're talking to their consumers, right? Nintendo does a direct. I love this because it can pinpoint and individualize where I am, but I do like it's almost like the holidays, for example. This is a perfect example for a perfect episode. The holidays, when Christmas and Thanksgiving and stuff come around, you get together with your family. You might not like all of them, but there's something special about it. And so E3 is kind of that for me. Like, I love Nintendo, and I will always watch the Direct. Whereas some people in chat might not be a Nintendo fan. They might not watch the Directs or give a crap about it at all. But if you watch E3, you might get a little bit of it, and you might be like, that's interesting. You might learn something new. You might be involved in it a little bit. And I might not like all these like military or mil sim games or just sim games in general, but I like getting hyped. There's something special about it. It might be a bit archaic and dated because it's kind of a ESPN, MTV television type of thing. But by golly, I love it. I did love it.
I mean, the good thing is I think Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest and Game Awards, I feel like kind of take that and still do it in a very good way.
For sure.
And so that's why I think E3 being like a physical event, I would have been very interested because I remember they were going to come back last year, and then a bunch of stuff happened and they just couldn't. And I do wonder what it would have looked like them trying to pivot. I don't think it would have been enough. I think they needed to pivot like 6 years ago. And so I think it would have been too late, but it would have been interesting to see what they would have done. The interesting thing is I don't think E3, the name, is dead. I think that it eventually probably gets sold off to somebody and becomes maybe a slightly bigger form of PAX. I just feel like the name E3.
I wonder if they could transition it into like an IGN type thing, where they turn it into like a rating system and they have their own YouTube channel for it and releases.
Because I think the name's too strong for it to just go away. And so I think there's got to be somebody out there that's got a checkbook ready to buy the name from the ESA and just be like, hey, we're going to take it all over. And it's not going to be E3. It's not going to be what E3 was, but the name will continue on in some regard. And I'm sure some of the convention aspect will too. But like, the E3 we knew as the week of video game Christmas is dead. Long live E3,
Yep. I mean, it is something that I always thought was special, but that's all we really have to cover for it. But I just thought it was interesting that it's coming to an end. It was, my yearly home. I always found a special place in it. I loved watching the Halo reveals on it and all kinds of stuff. That was just always my nostalgia for that. So
I used to finagle my schedule at work sometimes to try to get as much of that time off so that I could go home and watch all the E3 stuff. So I get it. I totally get it. And Rookie puts it perfectly. It was a Super Bowl for nerds. And I 100% agree with that assessment.
Right. So the next on the list we got here, we can move on, is I just think this is a funny thing. We don't have to stay on it too long. Something I was kind of excited for, a game called Skull and Bones, just because I like pirates. I love Pirates. Sea of Thieves is one of my favorite games, probably of all time, in terms of like multiplayer or cooperativeness. I do love that game a lot. And so Skull and Bones coming out, I don't even know what it really entails. I just presumed it's just another open world, open water kind of pirate game. But apparently the Skull and Bones testers quit playing the game out of sheer boredom. Ouch.
Yeah. I mean, this game has just gone through it, man. It's been the worst development cycle ever. Probably the worst. Ubisoft probably regrets signing this contract with the Singaporean government so hard because they are just forced to make this game. I did see online some people coming out of the playtest that they did this last weekend and saying that it seemed like it could be decent fun. Nobody was like glowing about it like it's going to be the best thing ever, but it seemed like if you're looking for a pirate battle simulator, it's probably going to fit that niche pretty well. It's just, how many people are there out there right now? They're like, oh man, I need Pirate Battle Simulator 2024.
I agree with you. There's probably not a lot, but I think it's because we don't know what we can get. I don't think Skull and Bones is it, but Sea of Thieves is so damn fun. But I think that there's like kind of a mix between the two. There's a perfect, beautiful, like paint mix of the two, like something that's kind of goofy, but I mean, Sea of Thieves is very, very competitive. But at the same time, you got Skull and Bones. It's very sim heavy versus not as goofy, and so I think that there's a middle ground you can walk, and I don't think you have to be into pirates or want a pirate sim to want to play, and then find out you enjoy playing a pirate themed game. Like if you told me,
so
like,
do you think?
Like, I played Black Flag, and it's fun, but I didn't care about the pirate aspects of it. I liked it because it was Assassin's Creed. Just because it had pirate skin on it had nothing to do with anything. The moment I played Sea of Thieves, immediately fell in love. And if I could get the crew on and we played a 4-man galleon, I would love to just do that at least once a weekend. I love that game.
Do you think Sea of Thieves ever changes to fit that kind of middle ground you're talking about, or do you think something new has to come around and be that thing that goes into that slot?
I think Sea of Thieves can't, because of the way it is. Sea of Thieves is like this max 4v4, like there's open world. I think it's like 16 players, so you could have 4 teams of 4, or 4 and 2 and 1 and 1 and 1, or whatever. You can have all kinds of different variations, but the main world and the server that you're kind of locked in is, I think it's 16 players total, but you're having max 4-on-4 battles, plus people third partying in there, But Skull and Bones seems like something where, because there's another pirate game that was coming out too by the makers of Ark, by Wildcard Studios. It got dropped. No, it isn't. It got dropped. Okay. I can't remember what it was called, but I digress. So I think that there's something for a larger scale naval battle. I don't know what it is. I'm not a developer per se. I mean, I am, but not in this space. So I don't think that I don't know what it is, but there's something to be had. I think that there's certain genres that are unexplored that we could get something amazing out of. And I think the finals kind of did something like that pretty well. And so I think that there's going to be more games like the finals, for example, coming out because of unexplored spaces.
That's true. The finals has been really doing some work the past couple of weeks. I mean, they've really kind of taken the world by storm. Even Steam charts, I think they're been hanging around 7 or 8 on Steam right now.
They're doing really well.
I mean, they've definitely got something good going on.
This transitions into our next topic, another small topic, because we could have, like I said, a whole nother day on AI. But the finals, for shame, are they're using voice actors that are AI.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're the announcers, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I know that this is a very touchy topic for most people. If you're a human, you should not like this, but I understand. Like I said, I don't fence it. I am on the sense of the side of anything that makes us human should not be so easily accepted as AI. I don't think it should never be AI. There are some people that are in the camp of never, don't, ever, don't. I disagree with that. But yeah. I think that there needs to be some guidelines, some barriers, some legal, there needs to be some laws or something or even just some moral issues, like where people have with just wanting to do it plain as day. This is what we're doing, taking art away from humans, because that's all we have. We are some of the only animals on this earth that can express ourselves via art. Now, there's other animals, there's crabs and stuff that do it too, and birds, but ultimately, humans, that's what we mainly have to separate. And when AI dives in, that's what they're hitting the heaviest is the human experience. They're hitting art. They're hitting voice acting. They're hitting art. They're hitting videos. They're hitting drawings. They're hitting music. And I can't say that I absolutely hate it, but I do personally, I don't like this. I don't think that in 5 years, this is where we need to be. In 5 years, I don't think this is the route. I think that there's a tree we can take where we co-opt AI, but I don't think that the route that it's going now, where it's just full automation in a space where we need to be humans, I don't know. But it's inevitable now, so it's just the way it is. But there needs to be laws very soon. I don't think the finals did anything really wrong here, because I feel like, for example, I gave Sirens this example. Me, you, and Sirens, we have a company, and we are making a game. If we didn't want to pay another a voice actor, and we ran out of our voices to do, and you're not syncing it up in the audio department or whatever, you're not changing our voices up too much, then, or not just voice acting, but anything. If we want it, we're doing everything our best we can, but if we can expedite things a little bit easier, if we can kind of use AI as a tool, I don't see an issue there. And that's kind of what the finals are doing. So I'm not really too worried about that. What I am worried about is that they did it so easily and so under the radar that no one cares, right? And so then future companies are also going to start doing this. And that's my problem. They're going to start doing it where, oh, hey, Matt Mercer, we have a AI generated voice that's basically you. goodbye. But it's
Yeah.
like, he's a human and he's amazing and he deserves this. If we could all have UBI and they could express themselves in another way, then that's fine. But that's not going to be the case, and you know that's not. So
Yeah, and that's kind of where I fall on it is, I guess I might as well burn some bridges right now. So I'm definitely, there's obviously, like you said, the camp of like never AI, never anything, right? I'm not in that camp. The reality is technology is always going to grow. It's always going to happen. It's happened in almost every other creative industry so far. It's now just starting to happen to art more heavily. But the same thing happened back in the 90s and the early 2000s with music creation. You used to have 20 people in a studio recording songs with artists and stuff. Nowadays you have 4, maybe. And maybe their entourage if you wanted, but their entourage aren't doing a job.
I agree with you that it has lessened the field of which the amount of people you might need, but I don't think that it gets rid of people because they've automated a little bit of the process, or you can have a drum kit at home now or whatever. Like, I don't think that that takes away being human. Like, in the future, no one will actually need to have music theory to just say, create me a piece, blah blah blah, and fill in this thing to Chat GPT, and then boom, out comes exactly what you're hearing.
See, but that's where
or
I think
thinking, rather.
that's where the whole tool aspect comes in, where I think that the person who learns music theory and is able to use AI is going to still be able to be more fine-tuned and still be better than the person who just uses AI. A person with already...
I agree with that.
The person that already has skilled knowledge, that skilled knowledge isn't just going to go away because other people can tap into that skilled knowledge because they don't know how to actually utilize said skilled knowledge. And so I think I'm very much in your camp where I'm like, AI is going to happen. It's inevitable.
Yeah, I know that.
The important thing that we do right now is, set up walls, set up guidelines, set up rules, especially around sourcing. My biggest problem with AI is sourcing and where they get the source of their stuff from. So, for example,
100% already, but
with the finals, I don't think the finals really, I don't believe they did this, but let's say this was the way they did it, I would be fine with it. I think I'm indifferent to kind of how the finals did it, but if the finals brought in 2 voice actors and said, hey, we're going to have you say a bunch of random lines, we're not going to use these lines, but we are going to pay you to say this stuff so we can make a model off of your voice so that future wise, we can just use that model of your voice, and we will pay you a royalty for all the stuff that we make with that model.
If they're doing that, so something like that, I don't mind because they're giving someone a royalty. Is that the case, or are they going to be very predatory later? Because the finals, like you just said, it's topping Steam charts, top 10, 7 in some cases, and at one point I saw it at 2, right behind CSGO. So I mean,
it's crazy. Yeah.
And so if your game is making that much money and get that much notoriety, then what are we doing not giving? I don't know if this is the case, but in this hypothetical, if they're not giving royalties to somebody that they use their model off of, what are we doing? That's despicable.
And that's why I feel like the reality is all these never AIers are actually causing a lot more harm than good, because they need to be putting their energy towards actually coming up with solutions for this, because Pandora's box is open. You can't close Pandora's box.
Exactly.
And so just being a never AIer is not helping anything. Put your energy, instead of just being like never AI, put your energy towards trying to make it so that we actually have things that are put in place to protect people and protect their work and protect the sources of their work. And that's kind of the important thing that I think needs to happen is if you are going to be a game studio that is going to use AI for a significant part of your project, if you're using AI for a couple things here and there, I don't think that's the end of the world. But yeah, if you're like, all of our voices are going to be AI, then for sure you need to be, whoever you're building your model off of still needs to get a royalty off that. Do they need to get millions and millions of dollars for every royalty? No, but they still need to be getting something off of it. An actor who showed up as an extra in the background of a TV show is still getting royalties to this day, even if this show aired in 1990.
They should.
Right? Every time that show plays, they're getting, $1 or $1.50 or something.
They absolutely should. I fully agree with that.
And so I think that's the larger conversation that needs to happen. I am interested because I know the developers have come out and talked about it a little bit, and I haven't actually read a lot of those interviews. I need to add that to my reading list because I'm interested, because one of the headlines I saw was, the finals dev talk about how using AI voices, expedite or help them, grow in other areas. And I'm interested in their perspective and their reasoning for it.
Yeah.
Not saying their reasoning is going to be, correct or anything like that, but I am interested in seeing why they decided to go that route. And I could totally see it, for another example, for a game that we like, if Bungie went to the Shaq's voice actor and was like, hey, we're going to make a model of your voice and you're going to get royalties from us. That would be kind of cool, because then, we, as a consumer, we would get a lot more Shaq's lines. We would get a lot more Shaq's announcing stuff, probably being able to be a lot more dynamic with what's happening in the game, which I imagine is probably what they did in the finals. Because from what I've seen, the announcers are pretty like specific. It's not like, oh man, double kill. It's like, oh man, fishy fart got a double kill on ball sack.
It's not that good, but yeah,
but it is kind of simple, because they use like the names for the teams, right? Where they're like, oh yeah, the lizards
versus the retros,
and the really pulled one over on the retros or something like that. And so like I totally get how the announcers probably had tons and tons of lines. They probably said it's probably going to be more dynamic and more interesting if we use an AI voice.
And it's way more expedited in that case, because they can just type it up and then boom, hard code it into the game. These are the variables. Even AI could do the variables. So 100%, I'm totally for that. What I'm not for, and I need that to my reading list too, because I think that I would love to hear what they have to say, and if they have some moral compass to stand on and to be guiding them, because that's when it is like, that's when that someone really cares about what they're doing and they want to utilize it as a tool, right? Versus, like, let me give you an example, what I saw the other day, and it just gets under my skin, and I can't express my extreme hatred for something like this. This is disgusting. So on TikTok, I was scrolling, and I saw a TikTok live where it was a SpongeBob, and they had like the Bikini Bottom background and stuff like that. So just a little SpongeBob, and they were using AI SpongeBob voice. So that's my boy Tom Kenny. Gotta love him. And they're using his voice as AI as a TikTok liver with a couple hundred, nothing too crazy, but still a couple hundred people coming in and talking to them, which is already lucrative, but also donating to him. And it was just SpongeBob's voice going, "Thank you for the heart. Hello Fjord. Hello HP. Thank you for the follow." They were just, it was the NPC streams, but they were using the SpongeBob art and they were using the voice. And that is absolutely despicable, because this is not your character. You do not own this. And like, now we've all kind of used, and if you're an internet personality, you've probably, grabbed from here and there or whatever. But it's one thing to just blatantly, I am SpongeBob, basically. No, you're not. Steven Hillenburg is rolling over in his grave, you trying to, you know what I mean? Like, that's insane. I don't even have words for it. It just made me so blood boiling mad.
As a side note, I'm like, who are these people giving money to these guys? Like, what are you giving them money for?
Dude, I have no idea.
Like, what are you getting out of this transaction?
Who knows, man?
Like I said, we'll probably have I'm going to pull together some of those articles and I'm going to read through them, and we'll have an AI episode here pretty soon, because I'd love to talk about it more and kind of have a better idea of, one, how it's being used right now, and also kind of talk about how we think it's probably going to get used in the next, realistically, 2 to 3 years.
I know, yeah, for sure. I would love to have that episode, 100%. We can move on. I do love that, though. That can be one of our very early January episodes, because I'm about it.
Yeah, because ain't nothing going to be going on in January.
So then off of that, because we could go on for hours, couple things I just wanted to mention before we get to something you wanted to mention. Let me move this down in my list. Okay, so Magic the Gathering Arena, it's a video game and I play it. It added another format where you can play all old cards, which I love that.
What's considered an old card?
Everything that you own in Arena. So basically, there's different formats like standard, and then and it goes back and further. So there's one called, in real life, there's one called Legacy, and you can use, if I recall correctly, you can pretty much there's a banned list, but you can use every card from even beta, right? Well, in this, they're doing that basically, but Arena didn't have those beta cards. They just kind of not recently, but within the past 10 years or so, that's when they've kind of pushed cards in. They've added some old cards, but so anything that you've purchased in Arena, you can now use. in this format. So if you're like, man, I really had a really fun deck back in the day, you can play it again.
That's cool.
I personally like standard the best because I like to keep up to date with it if I have money. But I do like to keep playing the new stuff. But this is really cool if you're just like, I just want to play my old stuff.
Interesting. That is very interesting. Did they ever add a like single player mode or anything to that?
They have they have other games that's not Arena. Okay. That has like a story mode that you can kind of play through, but you have to you don't really build a deck. You kind of get fed cards and you can kind of maneuver the deck, but you can like edit the decks that they give you, but you can't really make a deck like you can in Arena.
Okay, yeah, because I really one of the things I've really liked in Legends of Runeterra is their single player mode. That's like 80% of what I play now is just the single player stuff. That's been a lot of fun. So I've been interested to see if any other card games were going to go that route or end up getting any of that stuff. Though you bringing up other Magic games as a random side thing, I remember back in the day on original Xbox playing Magic the Gathering Battlegrounds, which was like this like 2D like arena thing where you would like summon things that would just go in a straight line towards your opponent and stuff. It was kind of cool. That just made me have a little flashback. I'm gonna have to relook up that game and see what it actually looked like, because I'm sure my memory of it is probably not that great.
There was one for PlayStation I when it first came out. Like the PlayStation 2 had the camera you could plug in, and it was like it wasn't Magic, but it was like Magic-esque or Yu-Gi-Oh-esque more like. And so you'd place down the little card, and then like the monster would come out of the card but on your screen. Yeah. I think that something like that, if I'm being completely honest, is an unexplored space. I think VR needs to do like Yu-Gi-Oh style battles, like not with the IP Yu-Gi-Oh, but imagine I'm in my VR headset, you're in your VR headset. This is a 1v1 strategy battle, and we're basically playing D&D or Warhammer, where we are moving little pieces, but we're in VR. So we feel like we're picking up the piece and moving it towards you. And that's so imagine like chess, but instead of, just being chess, it's something battle heavy like Yu-Gi-Oh. I think that's where VR needs to go, going back to the VR thing.
That does sound pretty cool. Good old Magic. Magic's gone through a lot of things through the years, and I think that they're still doing some pretty cool stuff. I just it's so hard to get reinvested in it. Maybe one day when I'm not playing Legends of Runeterra anymore. Maybe one day.
So that's pretty much all I had to say about that. I do want to move on to before we get into our bigger, heavier topics, I do want to move on to one thing that is a little wholesome before we get into this, and I think this is so sweet, and I love this. So anyone who plays Mario Maker, you probably already know this, but the Mario Maker community, so they're on the second one currently. Obviously, that is the one that is being currently played and uploaded in levels and stuff. But Mario Maker 1 recently has stopped all levels from being uploaded about a year ago. So there's no more uploads. They're shutting the servers down in like 3 months. However, the community is on a mission. Are you good?
Yeah. Sorry. I was
okay.
Getting something out.
So the community is on a mission to clear every level before the servers shut down.
Damn, that's pretty cool.
And I love that. So everyone's on this cool. Like anyone who plays Mario Maker 1, break out the old Wii U. We're all going to clear like 10 levels each and we're going to beat it. So there's like 1,000 something left, or there might be more. I could be completely wrong, but as far as I know, I thought there was like 1,000 something left or whatever, but they're on pace to beat it before the server shut down. And so that's super exciting because it's like it is a game that had unlimited levels, but then they stopped uploading. They stopped the availability to upload, and so then they're like, oh well, in a year we'll just shut down the servers fully. You can still play your old levels though. And people were like, well, mission acquired, we're gonna just try and beat every level, and
all the levels.
So there's a lot of really hard levels left, but people
I'm sure
they're crazy, and a lot of troll levels and puzzle levels, and it's very fun to watch people beat this goal. This reminds me of the wholesomeness of like something like Twitch plays Pokemon. I love this era where people come together to accomplish a goal together. I love this, so that's all I really have to say about it, but it's sweet.
A community building towards a single goal. No, that is awesome. Thank you for bringing that onto my radar. That's super cool.
I'm going to timestamp this, but then after that, we're moving on to the bigger topics. And then we can head out, but we do have three big topics left. One that you can lead the reins on because I have no idea about this, but The Last of Us Online being canceled.
Yeah, man.
Want to set us up for that?
So, for those of you who don't know, that essentially, when Last of Us Part 2 got announced, a little bit after that, they announced there was not going to be a multiplayer mode shipped with The Last of Us Part 2, which was disappointing to a lot of players, myself included, because in Last of Us Part 1, there is a mode called Factions, which I had an extremely lot of fun with. I played the hell out of Factions. It was probably one of my favorite multiplayers on the PS3 and partially the PS4. And so a lot of people were really looking forward to it. It was kind of this like a lot of team deathmatch type modes, but some of them were like objectives. And so they announced that it wasn't going to ship with the Factions mode, but instead they were going to build a whole experience just for multiplayer. And that became The Last of Us Online. And we've heard things about it here and there. We've never actually seen gameplay from Naughty Dog. It's always been like, oh yeah, we're really excited to show you what we're working on, you know, yada yada yada. We saw some concept art. They came out and talked about it a couple of times. And now to just reach the end of the line and them just being like, hey, never mind, we're just not going to make it. It's a little bit of a stab in the heart, man. Like, we've been waiting for this thing for, I think it's almost like 8 years at this point, and it really, really kind of stings that they just dropped it.
Interesting. What do you think? Because I'm new to this, so you can throw me anything here. What do you think? So I know The Last of Us originally had PvP. It did have like an arena-based type shooter. But this new thing, was it supposed to be like a survival? But or was it supposed to be like drop in a BR or what?
So from what we know, because once again, they never showed us gameplay of this thing. They only talked about it vaguely here and there, but from leaks that we can surmise. So the way that Factions worked way back on the PS3 was you would win matches and you would get supplies, and you had like a little home camp, like a meta home camp, where those supplies would keep your camp alive and growing and everything like that. But if you were losing too many matches, you weren't getting supplies, and then your people would start dying and everything. And so to prestige in Factions, you essentially had to keep your camp alive for, I want to say it was like 4 weeks or something like that. And that's how you prestige. That was essentially the way you leveled up, was by keeping your camp alive with these supplies. Now, granted, when I say camp, it literally was just like numbers on a chart. Like, there wasn't an actual camp to go back to or anything like that. But essentially, you were getting parts and you could see line go up, your camp's growing, your camp's doing all this kind of stuff. Up, you're losing matches a bunch. Okay, your line's going down and everything like that. And so from what we understood and what's been kind of leaked is it was going to have a similar thing, but now build out the camp, not just have it be a chart, but have it be an actual, like, you're going to drop into matches. There was also going to be like kind of like an extraction PvE,
I love
esque mode where you could get even more stuff and you'd be competing for parts.
That would make more sense than the arena shooter that they had in the first place.
Yeah.
Because I don't see who cares about The Last of Us as an arena shooter.
Hey. All right. I loved that thing.
Was it fun? See, it just seems like it was just like, well, why don't you just go play like Call of Duty or something? Not literally Call of Duty, but anything else. But in this case, this fits The Last of Us like world better, right? Because it's extraction based. It's like, where are we dropping, boys? We're protecting our keep, because that's the Last of Us world that we know. Just being a shooter for no reason is a little weird.
I mean, so the game modes were the original game modes from Last of Us 1. They were kind of built around like some objectives, where like one of them was like called like an interrogation, where like when you knocked a player, you go up and interrogate them, and then that would give you a clue as to where they're like on the map. They had like a hidden safe essentially.
So it's the same thing, just very scrunched down.
Very scrunched down. And that was a cool thing with Last of Us Online, is from the leaks and everything. It sounded like they were really blowing it up and making it like, yeah, this is like a game now. It's not just like kind of this micro scale. It's now macro scale. Like, you are actually going out and doing all this stuff. And so it's really disappointing that they ended up not being able to get there. And in their letter, they do talk about it and talk about why they came to the decision. And the kind of boilerplate is they essentially said that for them to do justice to this type of game, they would have had to change their entire studio, all about 400-ish employees that are at Naughty Dog, into a live service studio, which means no more Naughty Dog single player games. So no Last of Us Part 3, for example. You know, it's all just going to be Last of Us Online. I don't know, man. Like something about this like does smell kind of like fishy, like, or kind of weird. Like I don't doubt that that's probably part of it. But like my big question is, when was this identified? Like I said, this has been going on for like 8 years. Like there's no way that they just learned that it was going to cost them or cause them to like switch their whole studio over to a live service studio. Like there's absolutely zero way. Like I'm very interested in like what
I wonder
the
if
timeline was on this.
maybe they think it's more lucrative to go into 3 with the sales of the HBO series and stuff like that. Maybe that they just want this continuation. Maybe they felt like that was more demanding.
I mean, maybe, but you think too, you know, with the HBO series, a live service Last of Us game that's kind of ongoing and everything, you think that would be pretty lucrative. And I, like I said, I just can't imagine for what they were building, at least. Not to say that it was, you know, wasn't difficult, and I'm sure they had a lot of challenges and stuff, but like to tell me that a whole 400 studio team would have to work on that, I'm skeptical, man. That it just reads very oddly to me, and like I said, it feels very weird that like it's decided at this point that it's.
What do you think happened then? If is there a conspiracy here? What do you have going on in your brain?
I think there is a bit of a conspiracy in a way. Conspiracy is maybe like a little bit of a heavy word, but I think that there is like, because about the whole thing that happened about 1.5 years ago was, so Bungie got hired, or not hired, but bought by Sony specifically because they were like, you're going to help us kind of be like the shepherds of our studios getting into live service to kind of help them avoid some of the like big pitfalls that live service games go through, since you guys have already gone through them. And apparently about 1.5 years ago, year and a half, give or take, Bungie did go to Naughty Dog, like some Bungie higher ups and stuff went to Naughty Dog, and Naughty Dog showed them the game, did the whole thing. And Bungie basically went like, we don't think this has the hooks that it needs right now to be a big thing, you know, to be a live service that's going to survive. And a little bit after that, they chopped that team like in half, basically. And the leaks were essentially that they chopped it in half, and that team was going to kind of try to look at it critically and kind of try to find the fun and find the hooks. And then, you know, fast forward to right now, it sounds like they just weren't able to find the hooks, I guess. But that's why I think that them saying like, oh, to cause us to have to change our entire studio over, is that from them basically looking and seeing like, oh, here's how we would get the hooks, here's how we find the fun. Oh, this is going to take everything we have to be able to find the fun. And if so, I'm like, guys, what the fuck were you doing for 8 years? Like if you didn't find the fun in 8 years, I mean, what are we doing?
You think maybe it's like, well, this could be completely wrong, but like maybe an industry shift where it's like they realized that they couldn't find the fun at first, and then they kept going, so they should have stopped. But extractions are kind of being a big deal right now. Like I mean, we're just hitting the tip of the iceberg for extraction shooters.
Which is why I'm once again, I'm just really surprised. I'm like, I'm sure Bungie might have said the fun might have been there, but I doubt they were like. I'm sure they probably didn't tell them anything that they didn't already know. I'm sure the Naughty Dog developers knew that it wasn't completely there. And Bungie basically came in and just said, yeah, it's not completely there. You need to, find some more fun to be had with this. And so it is odd. I mean, I think to your point about the industry, I think that that's probably part of it, because we are kind of seeing the live service bubble pop. And so maybe they also just kind of said like, maybe it's not going to do well enough, especially in this current environment, for it to really matter. So now let's just go back to doing what we're good at, which is single player games, which, to be fair, in a world where you told me, hey, Naughty Dog can either make single player games or they can make The Last of Us Online, 10 out of 10 times I choose for them to make the single player games.
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, that's what they make. That's what they're good at. They're basically the pinnacle of that.
And well, I mean, if the success of this is like, if they still have all the assets and stuff, if the success of this moves forward, you could just kind of get a side team or have another team kind of working on this on the side. I don't see what I agree with you. 400 people, right? I don't. What are we doing?
Yeah, what are we doing? And also, it's just kind of bizarre to me because if that's the case, hire up more people to build up that team to then, now you're a 600 person studio and 200 of them are working on the live service, and then the 400 can still work on the, the single player stuff. I don't know. It's just, it seems like a lot of wasted stuff. I mean, they do say in the letter, like, we learned a lot off of this. You're still going to see the fruits of this kind of labor appear in our other games. And so that makes me hopeful that when Last of Us Part 3 inevitably comes out, because it's going to, that there is a multiplayer mode or there is something attached to it. That is
like remnants of it.
Remnants of the, because the reality is that if you ask a lot of the people who were into factions from the first game, we didn't need a full game. I mean, it's cool that they were going to make it, but I also would have just been happy if there was factions 2 on The Last of Us Part 2. Like, just make the game mode again, but with new stuff, new maps,
Yeah, but then
combat.
In a week after the game releases, are we still getting consistent players in a live service market?
I mean, hey, man, there's still people playing the old Last of Us factions right now. Granted, is it a huge, it's probably only a couple hundred people, but like, it did offer an experience that not a lot of other games have really been able to capture. Like, there hasn't really been anything since then that has captured the same feel that the original Last of Us factions.
You're preaching to the choir, man. There's a lot of games that I love that are doing the same thing that have never been, they're not touched in the space at all. Like, in terms, like, I mean, that dragon dogfighting game, that's a really cool concept. I mean, we don't really have another game. I mean, the finals is almost filling that space of Shadowrun. I mean, I would love to see something like that, but there's some things that are just untapped and they stay away from it. I mean, I think that live service games or just any multiplayer live games it's just so tough. I don't know if it's like tough to remain lucrative, but it's definitely tough. I mean, I guess popularity directly correlates with lucrative, but I think that it's got to be tough because when you make a game that's mostly online based, what are we doing whenever there's 4 people playing it?
Yeah, and I mean, that's kind of been the pop of the live service bubble, where it's like, how do you, once again, the currency right now is no longer money, it's time. All these,
and
live
Fortnite owns all of it.
Yeah, and yeah, like Fortnite's got like 4 new game modes that they're like, we want literally all your time. Yep. And so it's tough. I mean, I don't begrudge them necessarily for canceling it, but it does sting that it's like, man, we've waited a long time for this thing, and it sucks at the final hour because a lot of us were like, oh, like, it's gonna come out next year, like they've talked about it kind of seems like it's building up, and nope, no Last of Us Online for us.
Unfortunate.
And I mean, I don't know if this I don't know if this speaks ill for Sony's whole live service push, because they already delayed a couple of those games, and now evidently they've canceled a couple of them with Last of Us Online being gone. And so I wonder how this live service push is looking inside of Sony, and I wonder if they're starting to be, have a little bit of buyer's remorse on one, probably purchasing Bungie specifically for that live service push, and then just kind of pivoting their whole business towards this live service stuff. I wonder if they're starting to regret it. I still think that like I think when the Horizon, the inevitable Horizon Monster Hunter-esque game comes out, I think that's still going to be a hit. I think you're going to be able to get an audience with that, no problem. I mean, yeah, Monster Hunter style game where you're fighting like robot animals, dinosaurs, whatever you want to call them, like that's going to be a banger. But it does kind of speak ill. It's like, man, you couldn't get probably your most popular franchise a live service game to get off the ground.
Yeah.
Ooh, I don't know, man. It's looking scary. I'm sure we'll hear about that plenty next year, though.
I'm glad you could shine some light on it for me, because I really didn't even understand where it was going, what was going with that. But I do think that, I mean, that's a space. I mean, extraction shooters, I mean, maybe pick it back up. Maybe they will whenever Marathon and all that comes out. And they dropped the third one, and then they realized, damn, we should be doing an extraction shooter, and they use the assets.
Maybe what actually happened is Bungie went to Naughty Dog. It's like, you better cancel this fucking shit. We're making Marathon. That's our fucking thing. You best put this thing in the dirt within a year.
They did the same thing to Tarkov too. Tarkov came out with Arena, and they're like, hey, you better quit out with that extraction shit. We're gonna be the number one. No,
Yeah,
they're going to be in
real.
2 different spaces, right? Because it is funny. The Extraction. I'm so excited to see that genre take off.
Me too, man. I'm waiting for that first AAA like big budget. It's going to be Marathon basically, but yeah, I'm waiting for like Marathon to come out, and God, I hope it's.
I want to see all the
I hope it's
spin-offs
good.
we get, because I don't want it to be just guns all the time. Like, I love shooters, don't get me wrong, but Dark and Darker was so fun, and I think there's an unexplored space there. I mean, imagine the same concept, but Sea of Thieves.
Yeah. Yeah, I do know of a couple of games that are kind of different, not just first-person shooter, but are kind of dabbling in that extraction thing, and a couple of them are going to be very interesting. A few I can't talk about, but a couple of them will be pretty interesting, I think.
For sure. So yeah, we can go on to the next thing about Baldur's Gate. They took a little stance, and I love this. I am fully with this. I do think that games should always be accessible, but I do love what they said. I mean, they are literally the title holders. Let me check the timestamp here. They are the title holders of Game of the Year. Rightfully so, very well earned, much deserved, etc., etc. And they said their game will not be on Game Pass because they believe that it is a fair price. And not only do I agree with that, and I love that they said that, I think that this is an amazing thing, because I do think that Game Pass is, dude, it's kind of insane that a lot of these new games, AAA, can be free, basically. I mean, $10 a month, but you're getting all these games. It's kind of crazy, but Baldur's Gate 3 deserves to be able to say this, for one, being Game of the Year, but two, they didn't charge $70 in a $70 market.
And this is another example where I'm like, they could have charged $80 for this.
100%.
And I think, and to our point, I bet their next game's probably not $60. Well, actually, I don't know. Maybe they do want to just like give it back to the gamer sort of thing. But I definitely think that this kind of goes back to our whole pricing thing of, I think that them, taking a stance and saying, hey, this is what our game's worth, man. Nintendo does a similar thing with a lot of their games where it's like, Zelda's not going to go below $30 because Zelda is worth that money,
100%.
And they kind of know what their product is. And I love that Larian also is very confident. They're like, hey, this is what the product's worth, man. Like, save up money.
And they put it at 60, in a 70, in a transitional market to 70. So,
yep.
I mean, I think it's fair either way.
Good on them. 100%. Good on them. I can't wait to eventually play more of that game and beat it. Probably not until like next fall, but
I have about 5 hours into it. I like it. It's one of those games where you really got to find the time to sit down and enjoy it.
You know what I realized? I don't know if he's going to be listening to this episode, but I started playing the game with my buddy, and I've realized now playing it without him, I'm like, I just can't play this with you.
Oh, you're the opposite. See, I'm the opposite.
I'm the opposite, where I'm like, I kind of want to just play this single player, because as with like many D&D campaigns in my day, you always just get strapped up with a bunch of murder hobos. And it's like, I'm actually trying to like be in this world and do this story and do the role playing.
Well, that's fair. If you and I were playing together, I think that maybe we would share that same
probably, yeah,
that aspect. So maybe we would get along in the way that we want to play, because Sirens and I are like that too. We would kind of want to investigate things. We want to sneak where we can. We want to do that. We don't want to just run straight through. Now, that is typically my tactic. But when I'm playing a game like that, I do want to play it for the experience that it is.
Yeah, and I want to understand what's going on. I want to pay attention to what people are saying and stuff like that. And so I realized that we kind of diverged on that a little bit. And so I started playing a single player, and I've been having a really good time with it. And I am very excited to play it, because I'm sure once I probably get very deep into this game, I wouldn't be surprised if it ended up being my game of the year for this year. I'm not going to beat it this year, but I'll probably beat it next year. But I can retrospectively go back and say, you know what, Exoprimal, I'm sorry, you've got to be number 2. I've got to make Baldur's Gate 3 number 1.
I've been walking.
Actually,
go ahead.
We should have we're gonna do a game of the year episode, right? Where we're gonna talk about our games of the year.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we can do one. I mean, that could be the next week episode, because it's the finale. It's the end of the week. It's the end of the year, right?
That's true. I'll have to stay tuned. I might want to beat a couple more games before we do that, but because there
is a game that I think that you should beat, but I can't think of what it's called.
Something about tears. I don't know.
You're gonna have me in tears if you don't freaking play it.
But I want, yeah, because I want to beat Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, I'll tell you right now, it's not going to be my game of the year, but I want to beat it.
If you beat it, it might.
It would have to like just blow my fucking mind to become.
I think you're going. If you go into it with the mindset you always have with these games, with Nintendo products, I should say. Period. You're not. It's not going to be your game of the year, but I bet it would in a different world.
In a different world where I was a different person.
No, where you actually opened up your mind and didn't have the like.
Hey,
you
man,
you already have it set in stone how you're gonna feel about it. So once you beat it, no matter how good it is, you already know how you're gonna feel about it.
Here's the thing.
And that's okay.
Here's why my mind is already set in stone. Can you tell me right now that from what the game is, the gameplay perspective of like wandering around, doing the stuff, fighting things, doing puzzles, is that going to change at the 9th hour? Or at the 11th hour? I don't know. I said that.
You're going to be intrigued at how they uniquely do those things. I would say that you are right. It's not going to like objectively change. But you're not the gameplay guy. You're all of a sudden the gameplay guy for Zelda. But you're the story guy.
But that's the thing, is that's because that's what they're shoving down my throat with it. Is because the shift to the new Zeldas has been very gameplay driven. And so that's what I'm now judging it on. You want to give me just a plate of gameplay? Then I'll judge you on the plate of gameplay. Whereas the older Zeldas were definitely much more about the adventure and the story and kind of like driving to that next point.
I say if you get, like I said before, I agree with you to a degree. I mean, if you don't enjoy the gameplay, which I think is weird because it's so intuitive, everything is so intuitive. And every time that something happens, like when a reaction happens where you're fighting a Talus and you can shift through his body, like stuff like that is insane to me, that you can do, anything that you can think of, you can do it. So the gameplay for me is amazing. If you don't like that, whatever. But the story is incredible. If you engross yourself in the world, you'll see the tracks being laid in front of you for and you can sniff them out. Wherever you go, there's remnants of the past. There's remnants of there's ideas for the future. There's always something in front of you. And I think if you really pay attention to the world, you can be engrossed in this world like you could in Ocarina. I fully stand by that. This game is so good. The story is in the game.
I mean, from what I played so far, I would agree with you, because my biggest complaint with Breath of the Wild was it was just a plate of gameplay. There was almost no real story to latch onto. I mean, there was the flashbacks, but it's like, this isn't actually a driving plot. The only driving plot is, hey, you see that castle over there? Yeah, there's a big pig in it. Go beat it up.
I think that the world is alive in this aspect. Like if you remember from the first one, for example, without giving too many spoilers, the first one you Master Koga, you beat him, you throw him down the well, the Yiga clan guy. So he kind of comes back in a full force with the depths and all that kind of stuff. And so I
fought him already. Yeah.
When you fight him once, but you fight him again and again and again, and it's kind of it's this evolution of fight, and then you get this transitional thing to him. It's like they teach you more schematics the more you beat him. So then it kind of like, now obviously you could just look up a YouTube video and be like, this is how you make this machine. But the game does that for you. And that's what I appreciate so much. And I'm not going to lie, man, I cried at this game. The game ends the way it begins, and it begins the way it ends. And they do this very cyclical. I mean, literally, they have the I can't remember what it's called, but the snake eating its own tail.
Ouroboros.
Yeah.
Ouroboros.
So that's that type of stuff, dude. I know you like that stuff. I know you like story and symbolism and stuff like that type of like. But that doesn't that is not objectively in the game. Like, there's not an Ouroboros in the game, literally.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, it's the symbol of the game, and it is the symbol and metaphor of the entire experience of the game, because that's what's happening in it. And if you really pay attention to the cutscenes and the tears and all that stuff, you'll see it. And like, I have never been so like blown away at an experience as a whole. Like, I'm not talking about like for example, I get blown away at like Celeste when it's like, oh, they teach me how to do something in the game.
I just want to point out real quick, Super Saiyan Jones in the chat says, HP always makes me want to like Tears of the Kingdom by how passionate he is about it. And that's 100% my experience. I'm like, man, HP's talking this thing up. Like, maybe I'm missing it. And then I go play it. I'm like, it's still Zelda.
You have to allow yourself to be engrossed by it. Look, dude. I'm the guy that's. We're gonna go on this tangent. I don't care. We got time. We still have 20 minutes, and we have something. We got something to talk about. Look. This is why, right? I am not the single player guy. You know me. I don't like these things. So for me, look, I can tell you that. Hey, man, Super Mario Odyssey is one of the best games ever in terms of 3D platformers, and it is. But am I pushing that to you? No, because it's just a good 3D platformer. It's not got some engrossing world and world building and storytelling and story beats and the tears and the plot twist. It doesn't have that stuff, so I'm not going to push it to you. What I am going to push to you is I had a great time playing the game, and the more that I let myself, because you know me, I'm skipping cutscenes, dude. I'm skipping them. I hate them. But in Tears, I found myself not doing that.
But why?
Because I really enjoyed it. I love the magic that is Zelda, period. Like, I love, when I played Ocarina of Time just last year, I fell in love with it. I was like, how can a game be so magical? Like, when you hear that do 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 do, just that melody, it just changes how, dude, I don't know what it is, man, but it changes my brain chemicals into just pure bliss, because it feels like the first time you would watch like Lord of the Rings. You feel like they're going on this adventure. You feel like there's something to be saved. You feel like there's some sacrifice there. You feel like there's all these things that tells a great story. Zelda's there. Ocarina was there with that. Majora's Mask is there with that. Breath of the Wild, I would agree that it lacks that in terms of the world building, in terms of the story itself, I mean, but the world is still there. If you walk around, you can tell Link has been dead, or not dead, but asleep or whatever for 100 years, because there's moss growing on everything. Everything's ancient and broken and all this kind of stuff. They left a lot of questions without really answering any, so I would give you that in terms of the story being upfront and in your face. Not much there. World's still magical. I mean, you go to the Zora place, you feel like you're in the Zora place. It's a magical place. And you could say that about Rito and all the other places as well. Rito's a little scarce, I feel like, but Death Mountain feels like Death Mountain. But then Tears of the Kingdom does that in spades. I genuinely believe that. And I think that when you talk to the bubble gym people, like, you go into a cave and you see a bubble frog and you're like, what is this? And you get a bubble gym. You're like, da-da-da-da-da-da. What is this? Bubble gym. I have no idea. Then you talk to Colton and he's like, bro, I eat these. And you're like, what does that even mean? And it feels like it was just like the gym that this guy can eat, and it just feels like this world is so chaotic. There's no, like, there's like two race of people that are actually like there's four of the main races, but like then you got like the Hylians and like the human type people, and then you got this dude that's just, yeah, I eat gyms. Like, there's just something about every little aspect that pulls the world together that it feels. And this is, again, I gotta reiterate, this is from the guy who doesn't like single player games. I skip, and because of you recently, I've been sitting and kind of paying attention a bit more to Destiny and media, games and media.
You've been enjoying that shit.
I never said that I wouldn't, but I've been giving it the time. I've been sitting back and kind of respecting the art for what it is. I have consumed many, many, many other medias, TV shows, movies, video games, and there's nothing that I would recommend more than if you want gameplay, I would say something like Celeste, unless you're not into the side-scrolling platformer. If you are into video games and you like rich storytelling and a beautiful beginning, the way it ended, like, amazing thing, you got Tears of the Kingdom. And then if you want a great story and you're consuming media as a TV show, you got things like The Last of Us, and you got Critical Role, and you got, of course, Attack on Titan, my absolute favorite. Those three things, plus Tears of the Kingdom being a video game, but those three things in terms of stories that you don't have to play, and then Tears of the Kingdom being something that you would have to play, those are like the four things that I would recommend to anyone. Well, Critical Role, it's a little bit harder because of the time investment, but if there was no time investment in it, those four things, I would love all of those things. We can't acknowledge that, Pasta, and that was amazing. Have you played the season story or this week's?
Dude,
it was so good.
As a quick side note,
it was the Exotics quest, I think, but it was so good.
As a quick side note, it is kind of disheartening, just like how good this season is, and it doesn't matter because people still aren't playing Destiny right now. It's very disheartening.
But yeah, but that's kind of what I was saying, is like that's why I recommend these things so much. And the people that know me, the people that love me, the people that are in this chat, That's why I recommend these things, because I truly feel that these are the pinnacle of the things, and I really want to share this experience with people. The conversation that you and I have, or me and Puss, or me and Jones, we'll have these conversations about certain things, and I want to have it about one more thing, and it's this thing or whatever, right? And I still would love for you to finish AOT. Like you have what, the last episode, right? Just that final one, or
no, I still have. I've had like maybe 4 or 5, I think, maybe.
okay, so either way, but once you catch up to that, we can talk about it. These are the things that I love to talk about when something captivates me the way that it does, and that's why I push Tears of the Kingdom as well. I do think it is a good story. I genuinely do. I would give you Breath of the Wild is not. Link was asleep for 100 years. Zelda's holding Ganon back. Pig Boy, kill him. Blah blah blah. Whatever. The game's still incredible. I was fully engrossed when I played it. But the story of Tears of the Kingdom, because of how I feel about Zelda and how I feel, not just the world and how magical it is, getting the Master Sword or doing the tears and all that kind of stuff, those things lead into one another, and it's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I will beat it. I've made my promise to you that I will beat it.
It has been 8 weeks.
It's been a while, but I will beat it. Look, man, you know, it's been a banger year, you know, a bunch of games just keep on coming out and calling me. But I mean, I will beat it. I almost wonder, because I do wonder what the disconnect is between, like, because you're right. On paper, theoretically, Tears of the Kingdom should be my shit, but it's just not. And same with Breath of the Wild. And I do wonder what that is. I wonder if it is like, you know, you just kind of got into Zelda this year for the most part. And I do wonder if it, like, has Zelda's magic just worn off on me? Am I just a grouchy old man that just can't get into it anymore or something? I don't know. I feel like the older that I get, genuinely, this is getting to like a super personal HP thing, but I can cry on a dime now. Like things that touch me, it gets me immediately. I will cry immediately, but I don't like. And I'm not saying Zelda is making me cry. What I'm saying is, like, I'm receptive to these things now. And so whereas I wasn't maybe 5 years ago, I'd be like, I don't care, I'll just move on. I didn't even want to play it. Let's move on. Like, you know, kind of deal. I'm skipping the cutscenes. I'm doing whatever. But like this, it really does. Like I said, I can hear that melody. If I hear Zelda music, I'm crying. Like I'm getting in that mode. You know what I mean? That magical feeling. If it's any of that old stuff, it's the same with me. Where like, yeah, you play anything from, you know, Ocarina, Twilight, all those kind of things. Like that's totally me. But yeah, I don't know, man. I do wonder what my big disconnect is. You know, Breath of the Wild, I think, is more understandable because like my big disconnect was, the story kind of went to the side and I didn't find the gameplay. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't like, you know, I wasn't that engrossed into it. It was kind of just a means to the end. Tears of the Kingdom has fixed a lot of those original issues, which is why I for sure know I'm going to be higher on Tears than I was on Breath of the Wild. Like without a doubt, Breath of the Wild's probably, like, if I had to give Breath of the Wild a rating on my personal enjoyment of it, not necessarily how good I think the game is objectively, but my own personal enjoyment, I probably would give it like a 2 out of 5. Whereas Tears of the Kingdom probably is going to end up being 3 out of 5 at bare minimum, if not a 4 out of 5 on the enjoyment scale for me. Now, critically, I can, you know, or objectively, I can look at these games and I can see, like, I get Tears of the Kingdom is a, you know, especially from like the physics engine alone, is a like masterpiece
it's a marvel.
Of design. Yeah, it's a marvel, especially the fact that it runs on the Switch. I cannot believe that shit. It's like I definitely can appreciate it from that aspect, but I don't know what it is where it's just that. Am I just old HP? Am I just a crotchety old man or something?
I don't think so, because I'm older than you. But at the same time, I think that
you're not an older Zelda fan than me.
That's fair.
You know, I've been with Zelda since I was like,
that should be even more 7. So, because you're like, okay, like, because no Zelda game is the same, and I've made this point before. No Zelda games are the same. They've always been different. Zelda 1 is completely different than Zelda 2. Then you go into now you have the isometric Zeldas. Now you have the top down. Now you have the side scrollers. Now you have the linear dungeon crawlers. Now you have the open world dungeon crawlers. People are like, I want Zelda to be like it used to be. Which one? Which one? They're all different.
The one thing I will say, though, is that all the old ones were much more designed around their less open design, which, you know, Inafume talked in, or not Inafume, whoever, I forget his name, whoever was the director for the Breath of the Wild in this one, you know, he talked about how he does find it weird that Zelda fans are asking to go back to that like closed design versus the open design. And I totally get that, because that does seem kind of weird. Us basically being like, hey, I want you to let me do less shit in your game.
Typically, that's something that I would want, but I don't think I do. Typically, I do want rails.
And I see, that's kind of what I like to, you know, it doesn't necessarily feel like an adventure in Breath of the Wild and Tears to me, because I'm not on those rails of the adventure, if that makes sense.
You make your own, though. You are your own Link.
I don't. But that's the thing, is that me as a player, I'm not really going to make my own in that type of way. Like because the reality is that me as an adventurer is going to be like, all right, I guess I'm going to go find all these shrines.
I think,
and do those.
You know what? I think what might help people like that feel that way. I think what it is if, for example, you could go, you've seen a Gleeok, right? In Tears?
Yes. Yeah.
The giant 3-headed dragon. So you don't ever have to fight one of those. Ever. I don't even think, as far as I know, there's not even a quest to it. Now, there are rewards that you get for it. You get really cool attachable things. You can get like the Gleeok wing or the Gleeok fangs to attach to weapons and stuff. Makes them super strong. And then there's I don't want to spoil it, but there's another one later that you can battle, and you get like you get a chest for it, and it's like there's one up top and one down below, I think, and each one gives you something different. Like the down below will give you a piece of armor, and then the one up top will give you I don't remember what it is, but you get things for it. You get rewarded for killing them with permanent things. But there's no quest, as far as I know, to do it. And I think if we gave a little bit more guidance, maybe, because you can do these quests, but because the quest doesn't say, you're on this quest, go do this now, or have a time limit, you don't feel obligated. So you were just like, oh, well, I'll wander around, and oh, there's a Korok. Oh, there's not a dungeon, but a shrine. Oh, I can do the dungeon now. So then you've completely obliterated doing this little quest that you were gonna do, because there's so many little things to do. I love that, because I'm like, I hated it at one point, because I'm like, dude, my ADHD brain, I want to just finish the goddamn game. I ended up putting 100 hours in before I did the second dungeon or whatever. But
and see, I actually want to pull that out real quick, because I think that actually that kind of clicks in my brain as possibly one of the issues, is that on my way to go do X, Y, and Z activity, a dungeon or something like that, right? On my way to go to a dungeon, there are, 50 different things on the way that I'm going to stop and do. And I think the problem is that kind of takes the adventure out for me. Because imagine you're reading a book where it's like, oh yeah, Jimothy was about to go finally kill the person who killed his father. But instead he went and
picked up a flower.
And then it's like, oh wait, but first he saw a shrine over in the corner and was like, oh, I gotta go do
100%. And that's where the gameplay aspect comes in. If you can separate yourself from that. Sure. So I'm with that. I understand that fully. And that's probably why people want those rails back.
And so that, and that's the thing, is like, that's why, to me, Zelda is the adventure, and those rails help facilitate that adventure, because every moment that you're on those rails that they have there, you're getting kind of like the beats of what's happening on that adventure, right? Like the beat of going from the Lost Woods and then going into Hyrule Fields and
yes.
Like the music kicks in, you see all the different destinations, like that's part of the adventure, but you're on rails because you got to get to the castle, and then the castle's a plot beat, and then you kind of go through that. And so I think that those rails is what kind of helps facilitate that. And maybe
you're not given driven plot beats. I would agree with that, like, because they're kind of how you make it, but I get that.
And I think maybe that's just what it is like, maybe it's just been difficult for me to divorce the Zelda experience from that kind of on rails adventure. And granted, it's not like mega on rails, you can kind of wander off and stuff, but like you're getting those beats that kind of keep the momentum going of the adventure. Whereas like me stopping to help a guy keep this sign up with a bunch of random materials, I mean, it's a part of the adventure, I guess, but like
it's less of the adventure and more of a cute puzzle, because it's a game in and of itself. So it's like you can go and play Zelda the smashy grabby pokey go kill Ganon, immediately if you wanted to. Literally, you can get off Tutorial Island and just go straight there if you wanted to, if you had the skills to do so. But stopping and doing that and getting a little bit of extra meals or being rewarded for doing a quick little puzzle, that's fun because that's brain challenging, and that's what we want out of our video games. I don't think you need to do this necessarily, but I think some people may benefit from when they play a game, and this is something that I had to struggle with for a while too. I think that I get excited about things really easily, but I don't care initially, right? So a single player game doesn't get me excited, but when I get into it, I've been a little bit more receptive lately to be like, when something happens, for example, and I'll go back to this example all the time, in Ocarina of Time. It's a fucking game from 1997 or something, right? 1996. When I shot a bow through fire and it actually made it a fire arrow, that blew my mind, because not only is that's incredible today to mix up things like that, but that is from 25 years ago. Holy crap. That is insane to me. And so whenever that type of stuff happens in Tears of the Kingdom, or any game for that matter, but in this case, Tears of the Kingdom, I feel like most of you guys that might not, like, you guys are just like, oh, that was cool. Or you just like, this is a game. You just play it and you might notice it happened, but you play it and you're just like, yeah, I did the shrine. But what that shrine just showed you is like not only a technical marvel, but you figured something out and it should be appreciated. And I can stop and be like, wow, this is amazing. How did they do this? And I do this all the time, and I love that. And dude, whenever, I'm not gonna lie, man, I still stand by it. The way that they implement the tiers into the gameplay, into the finale of the final boss fight, like all that whole triforce, if you will, comes together, and it is like candy, dude.
Yeah. And it is.
If you can play tiers, don't get stopped by anything.
Okay.
Go straight to dungeon to dungeon to dungeon, because it's not an RPG where you level up. Everything gets harder as you go. So if you beat 2 dungeons and then you go kill a bokoblin, it's going to be a higher level bokoblin. Just attach that to your sword and keep moving. If you go to each dungeon, all 4 dungeons, plus the extra thing, plus the tiers, and then go fight again, and like, don't stop. Just boom, 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 straight to everything.
But the man needs help putting up his side HP.
No, don't do that stuff. I would say do that stuff if you're having fun, but if you could just get through it and get to that experience, but then you're probably focused more on rushing and you're not breathing in the moment. Like it now, something like The Last of Us is a good story. Destiny is a good story. They're telling a better story than Zelda, right? But the experience and the magic, that's the best way to describe the Zelda experience to me, is it's magical. I feel like a kid again. When you see this dragon pop out of nowhere and then dun 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 dun, and like it plays that, dude, I can't tell you how joyous I feel when I hear that music and he's falling down for the first time. And he was pretty cool. Like, yeah. I love it. I can't get over it.
And it is interesting because I'm playing a game right now that's very similar to the design of Breath of the Wild, which is Avatar, where I have just kind of been like, I'm just going to be here. I'm just going to kind of walk around and I'm going to kind of exist. But the thing that I'll say is that Pandora is like 100 times more interesting than anything that's happening in Hyrule.
I would agree with that.
Because, and a lot of that has to do with the limitations of the Switch, you know, but
no, I mean, Hyrule is Hyrule. I mean, it's been established. We know what it is. It has its magical moments. I think its magical like stuff is more in the pockets. Like in the pockets. So you go to Death Mountain and you don't feel like you're in the Zora place. You feel like you're with Yunobo and all of the other Gorons. Like they even reference you as, "Hey, Goron, what's up, Goron?" It's like you're not even a Goron. But that's their vernacular. Everything changes. The cultures are different. But yeah, the world itself, if you go into an open field in Pandora and an open field in Hyrule, Pandora is going to be a little bit more interesting. It's going to be more beautiful and color-filled and stuff like that. Of course. I would agree with that. But it has culture.
It does. I mean, I will give you that. Yeah, you go to the Goron place, and this has been true in like all the Zeldas, even Breath of the Wild. Yeah, you went to like the Rito place, the Goron place, you went to Zora place.
They have different values.
Yeah, different stuff going on, and so that is fair. I just gotta. I mean, in a way, I'm sure I'm going to have to force myself. Maybe not so much in the way, like even with Breath of the Wild, I had to force myself to beat it at the end because I eventually just kind of burned out on doing all the side stuff. And very similarly, my buddy was just like, just go beat the shit out of Ganon already. You already did all the important shit. Just go beat the hell out of that pig and then be done with the game.
Right.
And I did. And I was like, all right, cool. That was good. And so I feel like I'm probably going to have to do something similar where you're right. Just go do all the main stuff. And then at that point, just go beat up Ganon or whoever I'm going to beat up.
Well, you probably know how Breath of the Wild goes, right? So, like, if there's 4 dungeons, if you beat every dungeon, then all of your friends help you in the end. Tears of the Kingdom is exactly the same way. And what I think is cool about something like that is that these are the little moments that you keep getting, right? So if you don't want to beat the dungeons, then don't go down there and you're alone. But if you are, then you get everything that you do, you get rewarded for it. So if you beat all the dungeons, then you go down to fight Ganon. They're like, "Hey, Goro, we're here for you, buddy." And the Rito guy's like, "Hey, we're here for you, man." And like they come and help you. And then eventually it like shuts off and it's like, hey, your friends can't be here anymore. And like that, you always get rewarded for whatever you do. So if you don't want to put the time in to do XYZ, you don't have to. If you don't want to get the Master Sword, they still reward you. If you do get the Master Sword, you still get rewarded. Like
but that
everything changes.
I don't know, man. That kind of sucks. Like that you can. And I like it does give player choice.
I don't want to spoil it.
The player is wrong. Sometimes the player is wrong.
No, I agree with you, and that's why you would agree with me so hard if you knew why I said that. I'm not saying you actually get rewarded for not getting the Master Sword. It basically gives it to you, and I can't tell you how. And it is a beautiful thing. I didn't do it that way though, but that's how it would have happened if I did. But that's why I recommend getting all of the tiers.
Get all the tiers, get the Master Sword, beat the 4 dungeons.
No, right. Just get all the tiers. The Master Sword will come.
All right. All right.
But then you probably haven't done enough shrines to pull the Master Sword.
And see, now I have to go do more bullshit.
It's not bullshit though, it's fun. If you don't think that's fun, then that's you. But that's not bullshit. I did all the shrines and I got rewarded for it.
But it'd be so like putting it on paper as, oh yeah, to get the Master Sword, you got to go do a bunch of bullshit puzzles versus to get the Master Sword, I had to, sneak my way through the castle and oh my God, this person got captured and then I got locked in the temple and then I had to pull the Master Sword. Then I got teleported like 16 years in the future, or no, it's not 16, but whatever.
I'm telling you, this one feels as magical as it. Like, I promise you.
Which one is cooler? I mean, I don't know. This is kind of my whole problem with like the way this is designed. Is it's designed?
I wish I could just tell you.
It's designed to basically say, go do menial tasks. Instead of having an adventure. You're not having an adventure going and just doing 80 shrines in a row.
Well, but you're saying like the shrines are like playing RuneScape and just clicking one spot. It's not. I mean, they're fun.
They are fun, but me having to go do a whole bunch of them to actually get to the adventure part doesn't feel like an adventure. Whereas all
I agree
the
with
other
that.
Zeldas have felt like an adventure to get to the rewarding.
I agree with that, and I do think that you will
shit around Hyrule.
I do think that you will benefit, and you will. Even if I can't imagine you hate all of the shrines. And if you do, then you are an old man. But if you don't, and you do like them like a normal human, then when you get rewarded with the, like, dude, I wish I could just tell you because it's so good. If you go, let's just say this, go to the Lost Woods.
Okay.
The Master Sword is not there.
Well, yeah, because it broke.
Right. And so that's in the beginning, so that's not a spoiler. But what I'm saying is but the tree is broken because of the goo, the whatever the fuck it's called.
See, Pasta brings up a great point where it does feel like that, where it's like, oh man, dude, there's this insane raid in Destiny. Oh my God, it's the coolest thing ever. Go do 30 fucking strikes before you even sniff in my direction.
That's not true though, because if you can only do fucking the Fallen Saber You do it and you know it. You're not doing, the shrines are not the same. No two shrines are the same. Period.
Yeah, but not all the shrines are as good as the other shrines. Like there are shrines that are like, okay, that was a puzzle. There are great ones. Don't get me wrong. Like, there are ones that are like really good. You're like, damn, that was really cool, man. But like that's the feeling that the game gives me, where it's like all of the rewarding stuff is behind me having to go do a bunch of menial stuff that doesn't really feel rewarding. Or once again, it doesn't feel like the adventure. Like I attach Zelda and adventure together, and I think that's why I have a hard time like kind of navigating this and kind of getting into it as much, is because they've kind of taken the adventure part out for me. There's adventure moments, but the actual like beat to beat of getting to those moments is just go do these shrines, go do these, things around the world, go,
But those are fun. And every dungeon is completely unique. Every dungeon in this game is completely unique. There's even a surprise extra thing, and then there's the shrines, and you get rewarded with a huge piece of history with beating all the shrines, which I wouldn't expect anyone to do. There's so many in this game, but I did, and I got rewarded. I'm not saying you should, like, you just get a nice piece of history. It's not like, it's not part of the story. It's just like, oh, this is, you get rewarded for this thing. I would never even use the thing that I got it.
But what if that piece of history was naturally integrated into the actual adventure, even as like a side thing, as something you don't even have to really pay attention to, but instead it's locked behind me having to do, X amount of,
you wouldn't even know what it was, even if you did. Like, I still don't even really know what it like fully is. It's kind of a nondescript hero thing. It's just a cool extra thing for being, and for my case, it's not even being rewarded. It's like, oh, I had to do all this. In your case, you're like, oh, I have to do all this bullshit to get rewarded. For me, it was like, oh, I had a lot of fun teasing my brain with puzzles to be rewarded. Even more so. So I get double the dopamine. If you don't like that, whatever. But I know at least 4 people with your same mindset, but worse, that just don't like to like things. I like to like things. I like to like things. Sue me. I enjoy things like Zelda. It makes me cry. It makes me feel, and I love it. But if you don't, you don't. It sucks.
And the thing is I do too. I like to like things, but I think Zelda comes into a very particular problem of what I liked about Zelda is not what it is anymore. And 100% on me. I just think that there's a divide in my mind that's not allowing me to cross over that. And I don't know what it is, because in any other game, the shrine stuff, I'd be like, oh, that's kind of cool. But for whatever reason, and granted, this isn't me saying I hate the shrines. I do like a lot of the shrines. Like I said, some of them are like, okay, yeah, that was a puzzle, it was fine. But there are some of them that are really, really good and really fantastic. And so that's not me saying that I don't like the shrines, but it's just when my brain is playing Zelda, it's almost like you with when you say, when I play video games, I want to play the game, right?
Yeah.
Like your brain is just kind of hardwired into that. When I play Zelda, because I've played Zelda for practically my whole life, my brain is just so hardwired into like, this is what you should be getting, and then I'm not getting that, and so it just kind of turns into me going, I'm not really getting what I want out of this. I'm having fun in certain spots, but I'm not getting what I want out of that game. And that, once again, that's me. That's like a blocker.
At least you could say that. Let's just say this. I have a friend who I said, man, you would really love Zelda. And he said, no, I don't like Zelda. And I said, why? You've never played one. And he said, because I don't like it. He's literally never played it. Just some people just don't like to like stuff.
And I'm not that way. Like, trust me, dude, I like Exo Primal, which got like 5 to 6 out of 10s by reviewers. Like I like to like stuff. Even when people want to hate on stuff, I'm like, hey, there's some good here. And for whatever, I guess with like some of that older stuff, like that stuff that's like baked into my brain, essentially, it's just, it's that crotchety old man. It's hard to say, change scares me, I guess. I'm just like, man, I remember back in my day, I just went to fucking the Lost Woods, and then I went to Death Mountain, and then I went to Zoro's Domain, and then I went and beat the shit out of that guy, and I had a great time.
But you're smart enough to know that nostalgia goggles exist.
Of course. And that's why I'm saying, like,
I played both within the same fiscal year, and I I couldn't put either one down, or all four rather, because I played the sequels to each, right?
And that's why I don't think it is like a whole. I legitimately don't think it is a. Oh, I just think those games are necessarily better. I think it's legitimately just something in my brain that's like, you've been so used to getting this experience that now that it's changed so much, you're just not really getting. You're playing Zelda, so you're expecting like, one of the greatest experience of your life. Because if you would have talked to me, 10 years ago, I would have been like, oh yeah, Zelda's one of my favorite games of all time. Like, the series is very special to me. And so like, I guess since Breath of the Wild, I've just kind of felt like, all right, I guess Zelda's just not for me anymore because my brain just can't make that gap. I don't know how to fix it.
I think you're too adult and need too much dopamine quickly. Maybe. You're too busy. If you sat back and received Zelda fully and what it was, like, I'm telling you right now, when you hear, I know you love that freaking melody, that just bum 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 bum. I know it ends that way with that song. If you see that after all the fruits of your labor, and you see I can't even say it, but if you see what happens, you would. I don't know if you would shed a tear, but you would definitely have a huge smile on your face, and you would be satisfied. I guarantee it.
And hey, that'd be a huge upgrade for Breath of the Wild, because Breath of the Wild, I did beat it. I was like, all right.
Yeah, the ending was a little not good of Breath of the Wild.
She's like, Link, do you really remember me? And you're like, yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. End scene.
And it's funny because you get that voice line, even though you didn't. For me, I didn't get any memories, so I could just be like, no. So it's like,
you're like, who the hell are you?
Right.
So you know what? You're right. I will plan a day, because I've got a couple of free days coming up that I'm going to be off of work, and I'm just going to be like, you know what? Honey, put the cats away. No distract. I'm gonna just sit in front of the TV and just receive Zelda and see if that fixes it.
My body is ready, Zelda. Take me.
If it doesn't, though, I mean, I don't know what to tell you at that point. My brain's just broken, and Zelda's just dead to me.
Ultimately, let me finalize by saying this. The reason that I say certain things, Attack on Titan. And I of course I would say The Last of Us, but I mean everyone I know has already seen that, so I don't need to recommend that to anybody that I know, because they've all seen it. We all know how good that is. But like, I've seen tons of shows, tons of movies, and played tons of games. Movies I'm a little less versed on, but tons of shows and tons of games. The reason I'm recommending Attack on Titan or Zelda, in your case, I'm recommending Tears of the Kingdom to you because you have a Switch and I know you would like it. But in general, the reason I recommend anything to anyone is because I know that this shared experience would be a very special thing and very lucrative socially for the both of us. And I think and so that's why I share it. I am not trying to be a pest. I'm trying to genuinely share. But I'm giving this kind of to the world too. I genuinely want people to experience the things, when I felt the way that I felt when I watched AOT or when I played Zelda or or Critical Role. I wished I could share that easier with people, but it's just not too easy to share. I've been sharing that with Jones. When Jones was like, dude, I got back into it. Dude, this part was amazing. And I'm like, you haven't even got to the good parts yet. And he's like, but this is already amazing. And I'm like, well, there you go. And those feelings that he gets, I love, because when I got that feeling, I immediately go, I want to share this with the world. I want everyone to feel this feeling because it feels so special to me. So that's why I do it. Not because I'm trying to be a pest. Not because I think that it's the best thing in the world. It's because of that moment, I felt so invigorated with magic and special, like it just felt so good that I was just like, here it is. I have to give it back to someone.
So I want you to tell me right now. We can end the conversation with this, but I want you to tell me right now, knowing what I've said and knowing everything you know and everything, and I'm gonna give it a fair shot and everything, like fair shake and everything when I play it. On my 1 to 5 scale, where do you think I would land on it?
Because I do think that you still have contrarian tendencies, I think you'd still hit it with a 3. But I genuinely think that if you really received it and paid attention to all these little details, and I will make a list for you, because I was watching Game Grumps play it recently, And they are missing so many of the things. And I'm like, watching them play it back, because I've only played it through once. Watching them play it back, I'm like, oh my God, the thing that it wants you to do is right in front of you. They give you the breadcrumbs. They give you the trails. Everything is there gameplay-wise. Everything is there story-wise. They set it all up, and they knock all the pins down immediately. And you come out with a bang. I think genuinely, if you were being open and honest and fully embraced it, you would give it a 4.
Okay.
On your scale.
Do you think there's any
on my
chance
scale? I give it a 9.5. Period. It's flat out amazing.
So do you think there's any world where I would give it a 5?
No, because I think there's always going to be something that you won't like about it. It's not, the story.
Well, keep in mind, so my scale is a 5 means it is amazing. So my scale is 1 is bad, 2 is good, 3 is great, 4 is, or no, I messed it up. 1 is terrible, 2 is bad / okay, 3 is good, 4 is great, 5 is amazing.
I mean, it just depends. I don't even know what that comment means. It's just, but it's funny because I know you play Genshin.
I have played. I don't play it now. Because the same thing happened in Genshin where I was wandering around. I'm like, the fuck am I doing all this for? To roll some waifus in a fucking gacha machine?
Well, there's gacha machines in tiers, so you're gonna have to deal with that too.
Yeah, I've seen those already. Yeah,
but I think no, because I think that you ultimately, in your core, are a Nintendo hater. I don't think you want to be. You are though.
That. Dude, I've loved so many Nintendo projects. I love
30
Mario
years
Odyssey.
ago.
Mario Odyssey.
Okay, fair.
That was one of my favorite games that year. And I played the shit out of it next year too.
If you can't get the same enjoyment out of Mario or out of Zelda that you got out of Odyssey, cause don't get me wrong, dude, that's one of my favorite games of all time too. I'm just saying, if you can't get that same level of enjoyment, at least the feeling, because obviously they're not the same type of game, but the same feeling, I don't know what to tell you, man. I think you just don't want to like what people like. I don't know, because the sales is 19 million sales.
But this is the only, you say I have contrarian tendencies, but this is the only real thing that I feel like I'm contrarian to like a lot of people in the industry on, right? I mean, like, it's not like I'm out here being like, oh, Last of Us is the worst game ever created or anything like, I feel like Zelda is like my only holdover, where everything else I feel like I'm not really like.
I have 2 words for you.
Okay.
Metroid Prime or Metroid Dread.
Metroid Dread. That's fair. I do hate Metroid Dread but honestly,
it's received well. Everyone liked it.
But that might even be the science, HP. Maybe the reality is like this stuff that's baked into me, because Metroid's another one that like I played the fuck out of that, and like that was one of my favorite franchises ever for the longest time. And so maybe it's just one of those things where it's like so baked into me that like, I'm just like, oh, back in my day or something. I don't know.
See, I don't know what it is, but I never really played a lot of Metroid growing up. I played a little bit of Prime and I played a little bit of Super, but barely. Like they were not my tops, So I was always playing Mario World and stuff, but I knew of Samus and the character from Smash Bros and stuff like that. So there was always a story to be told. The character was forefront in my brain at all times because I played a lot of Smash Bros. I played Dread and I just fell in love. I was like, I love this story. I love where it's going. I want to see this be a TV show. It's so good. But again, it's not good enough for me to recommend like I am with Tears of the Kingdom. And I kind of go back to this. I'm not, because if I was being a pest, I'd be like, go play Pikmin 4, go play Metroid Dread, go play Mario Odyssey. But I'm not, because if you don't like that stuff, you don't like that stuff. But I don't think there's a world where anyone doesn't enjoy Tears of the Kingdom. Period.
Hey, I bet I could get down on some Pikmin 4 though. Honestly, I bet I would really like.
It looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But I genuinely
like. I'm like, am I really that contrarian?
No,
I got a couple titles, but
you're a little rough. Let's just say that you're very judgmental, and I'm a little
critical.
You're critical where I don't think it applies, because once you, I don't think that being hypercritical is unfair, because I'm that way as well. but I don't think you've given it a fair shot to be as critical as you are. And now, I'm not saying putting in 8 hours is not enough time, but if you were to sit down and actually play it and enjoy it and fully embrace the game for what it is, you will enjoy it. I don't think you are right now because you're like, I gotta go to work, but yeah, I'll get a couple hours in. Oh, this Korok wants me to do. Okay, I'm done. You're kind of like already in this mindset of like, I gotta do something else anyway, so I don't want to do something menial. Totally understandable. But if you have 5 hours to burn, you have absolutely nothing to do. Sit down and just enjoy the game for what it is. And dude, I'm telling you, when I got off stream, I couldn't stop playing. I would keep playing off stream. I'm kind of mad that I did that because I didn't want to do that. I wanted to keep playing on stream, but I couldn't stop.
I mean, hey, I'll give you this. I'll definitely be higher on Tears of the Kingdom than I was on Metroid Dread. I'll give you that much.
Say it again.
I said I'll give you this much. I'm definitely gonna like Tears of the Kingdom more than I liked Metroid Dread. So
I know that's probably any game more than you like Dread.
Dude, I pre-ordered the fucking amiibos for that game and everything too. I've got them sitting on my fucking TV stand. Why'd they do it to me? I found that there.
I would agree with that, Jones. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Jones says, I found that there are games I like to play and games I like, but wouldn't want to play, but would get better enjoyment out of watching others play. New Zeldas are that for me. Honestly, maybe same, but I refuse to watch people play games for me because I don't know why. I'll just play it myself. It
depends for me. I don't play Mario Maker, but that's the content that I consume. So I definitely understand Jones. I like watching people play something that are going to be better than me. And then if it's a story thing, I've definitely watched people play story-driven stuff where I can get like Detroit Become Human. I've never played that, and I have no urge to play it. I don't think I would like that game at all. But I watched people play it, and I had a blast. You know what I mean? So if you never get around to it, I highly recommend at least looking up all the Tears cutscenes. If you could do that for me, if you never end up playing it, look up the Tears cutscenes.
No, I promise special. You now, I will beat it. I will beat it, and after I beat it, we will have our 2023 Game of the Year discussion. So that means we're probably not going to have that until like mid-January, but because the main things I want to beat before we have our Game of the Year discussion is I want to beat Zelda. I just bought Alan Wake 2, so I'm going to beat that.
You're giving me a lot of homework because I need to beat more Baldur's Gate 3 with Sirens.
I would want to, but I just know that there's no world where I'm done with that game within even the next like 3 months.
Right.
Just with the type of time that I have to play games and that being like an 100+ hour game, there's just no world where I can beat that.
Same.
Anytime soon. And so I want to beat those, and then I probably want to beat. I'm probably not beat, but I at least want to play a little bit of because I still want to beat all the Final Fantasies. I was gonna say Final Fantasy 16, but I'm also thinking about bringing back my Final Fantasy my Final Fantasy series.
We're here and waiting whenever you're ready.
I know.
I loved it. I loved
time, it. Give me more time. But yeah, I will beat it. And I will move it to the top of my list.
Okay. So we can jump on into the last topic, so I don't be a bother anymore.
No, you're not a bother. Never.
Okay, so the last topic we have for today, guys, and trust me, we will continue to talk about Zelda pretty much every podcast because I love that game and you can't escape it. But the next topic of discussion we have, and the final one we have on the list, so strap in. It's a bit of a doozy because we'll probably be touching on other things. I don't really have much else to say about this. You can lead this, but I do have things to kind of pin in every time you're going to be talking about something because this kind of goes over a couple of the other things we've already went over.
We've already talked about some of
so
them,
this is you guys have probably already seen it, the Insomniac hack. So if you want to lay it out for the people, what happened?
So basically Insomniac got hacked. I think it was about a week and a half ago. The hackers essentially demanded a ransom for the data of about, I think it was the tune of about $2 to $3 million, if I remember correctly. And Insomniac did not pay, and so the hackers then released said information, about a little over a terabyte of information released out into the wild. A lot of this was included information such as like personal employee information, which I think is some of the most damaging from this. A lot of like HR documents, passports, things like that. But also their entire slate for the next 8 years basically got leaked. Or got released, so we know basically everything that they're going to be working on for the next 8 years. A also playable version of Wolverine got leaked as well. I don't think it's actually like playable right now, from what I can understand. But like I'm sure there's other hackers that are on the case of getting that playable. I will say right now, I highly recommend do not play that build. Do not play that build. Do not get wrapped up in this. Do not get any form of like wrapped up in this hack, because I imagine there's going to be a lot of hell to pay for this thing. So I would avoid that.
Full disclaimer for everyone, period. All we're doing is just speculating and bringing the news. In no way, shape, or form are we telling anyone to go participate in any of these said illegal, very illegal activities.
Yes, very good disclaimer. We're not even going to talk about the games that got leaked. Eventually we will, because it's now just going to be public knowledge. Eventually it's going to come up like, oh, what's Insomniac working on? Oh, well, we already know it's going to be this. We could talk about those on different dates. In reality, the only thing I really want to touch on today is, one, I feel terrible for the personal information leaked from all the employees.
Absolutely.
That is definitely the biggest burn from this thing, is just for being associated with the game. Your stuff just gets thrown out into the world. Home addresses, passport information, like all that kind of stuff is awful. I'm hoping that there's some way. I'm hoping that Insomniac does something for their employees to help them with like identity theft protection and everything. They're obviously probably reeling from this, so we're not going to hear anything about that. But I'm hoping that's something they offer to their people in the case of this leak. The thing I want to talk about was actually some of the emails that got leaked, because I do think they paint a very interesting picture of the industry. And it's kind of in a way, I wish this was a part of the industry that was actually a little bit more forward anyways. And so I feel okay talking about this today. So a couple of things came from the emails. One, a lot of sales figures came from the emails. Saying, we don't necessarily have a timeline of when these sales figures are from, but people have done a little bit of sleuthing and have kind of figured out that these are probably from around 2021, maybe late 2020. But some sales figures came out, or well, for sure some of it was from 2022 as well. But basically stuff about Sony's first party games, things like God of War Valhalla, or not Valhalla, God of War Ragnarok, the newest Ratchet and Clank, Spider-Man, all those kind of great games. A lot of their budgets got leaked, and a lot of their sales figures got leaked. And an interesting thing has kind of been happening where if you look at a lot of the sales figures, you're like, damn, Sony's raking in the big bucks with these things. For example, one that popped out to me is Ghost of Tsushima, which very widely is considered one of the better new IPs from Sony in recent years. Only cost about $60 million to make, it turns out. And it definitely turned quite a heavy profit off of that. Versus we got leaked budgets of what the budget was for Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 cost $320 million to make, which is insane. And so this has kind of led to a larger conversation about, are AAA games sustainable anymore? If budgets are going to start ballooning to 300 and something million dollars, the amount of sales you got to get off of that, I'm sure Spider-Man will make that back, but I can't imagine it's going to make like significantly more than that back, especially when it's locked to a single console. Like, I could maybe understand if it was like, oh, this is going to Xbox and to PC, or even just PC alone. But I don't know. It brings up an interesting thought of like, can we keep on just having these giant AAA games? Are AAA games eventually doomed to just balloon too heavily and become too big budget wise that they're just no longer going to be tenable to make anymore? We're going to essentially have the rug kind of pulled out. And
I think this kind of harks back to the AI stuff, right? I mean, AI might make all that stuff a little bit cheaper, a little bit easier.
Maybe that is true. AI
but,
might,
but I do think that they're kind of competing with themselves, right? Like a AAA is like a let's say, I don't even know, but like let's say two giants like Spider-Man and something else that would be similar to Assassin's Creed, right? Let's just say those two. They're competing with themselves on who can make the better, not the better game, but the better feeling game. Like, oh, our engine lets you have, you could pick up pebbles, not just pick up the boulders. You're picking up little pebbles. And our sunlight rays are actually realistic, and there's a horizon that's realistic, and you can, and the world is 18 times the size. And then the next person's like, well, ours is 20 times the size. And then it just keeps like this, a dick measuring contest, you know? Like
arms race event,
yeah, and but they're kind of outgrowing themselves, kind of like you mentioned, because it gets to a point where they're like, who are you fighting for at this point? I mean, you might not even come out net positive if you spend too much money on making it so hyper realistic and so different from other games. Like when you got a game like, you know, whatever, like I mean, Baldur's Gate had a lot of resources, they put a lot of money into it, but some games that have the similar amount of sales don't have as big of a team or didn't have as many resources. So we don't have to continue to make hyper realistic games, but that's what they're fighting for some reason. Games are games, they're meant to be fun. We don't have to make everything the same.
I do wonder, because yeah, they do keep fighting for it, and it seems like most of us are saying, hey, we're kind of cool where we're at. You know, we can obviously take some upgrades, but like they don't need to be as massive. But I wonder if they have data that says contrary. I wonder if they have data that says that gamers do, you know, want, you know, research data or something that's like, oh no, they do need the freshest, coolest looking, newest thing for this to actually
I could see that, but my thing is like, I don't know if you live in this same world, and I want to read that in a second, Pasta. I don't know if you live in this, like the same reality that I had growing up. Is like when you were growing up, did you experience a lot of people say, and because like you're a gamer at heart, you like games for games, right? You don't care what it looks like. So if you could play GTA today and then tomorrow play Celeste and think both were great games, not GTA was better because it looks better. Right? They're different. Obviously, they're different genres, but you know what I mean. Because one is pixelated, for example. I have a friend who thinks that pixelated games are dated, period. He doesn't think that games should look like that, right? And so that's a weird take because, and obviously he's contrary. He's contradicting himself anyway because he would play like Minecraft and stuff, which is obviously blocky and pixely. But I digress. So you got like some games, like when you were growing up, you probably experienced people say, "Oh, graphics! I love this game has amazing graphics." It seemed like back then no one cared about gameplay. Now, obviously, that's what hooks us, so they don't have to say it. But it would never be said. At least in my camp, they would always be like, "The new graphics." And we have a culture shift in gaming where I don't think we hear that as much anymore. I don't hear that. So do we care about what we're pushing out so much? Now don't get me wrong, Baldur's Gate and something like Spider-Man 2, fucking technical marvels. They look gorgeous. Yes. So I can understand it has a $320 million budget, but do I care?
And to put in perspective, $320 million, that's more expensive than any of these Spider-Man movies. Some of them by double the amount.
Right.
And so that's pretty insane. But you're actually right, yeah, because I do remember as a kid, it always came up with like graphics, oh, this looks incredible, the blah, blah, blah. Very rarely do we talk about like, oh, the gameplay. I wonder if that's a symptom of the industry moving and us moving with it, or I wonder if it's as we get older, we just care about it less. And so like if we went and asked a kid right now, I don't have a kid handy to ask.
But kids play Fortnite, and Fortnite's not the most visually stunning game. Like, it looks good, sure, but it's not Spider-Man.
And they play Roblox, which doesn't look that amazing either. So yeah,
right.
I do wonder.
Like, I think there's a culture shift in gaming. We don't really care as much about it, and we kind of care more about the gameplay and what gets our dopamine running, what gets our receptors fidgety, you know? I don't think that people care as much, but the companies seem to be behind in the times and think that that's what we want Spider-Man to be dripping sweat off his face and his pores. It's like, who cares about that? Some people, of course some people do. The people that play Forza do. The people that play Madden do. But the people that play Spider-Man because it's a great game, or God of War, I mean, it already looks as good as it should look. We don't need it to look any better. It looks great.
Yeah, it looks so good. It looks so incredible. And so I wonder if the call is coming from inside the house, and I wonder if developers are like, oh, I want to make something that looks this good. And I wonder if that's the push for it.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree with Pasta here. Feel like we're at a point where graphics are only incrementally increasing, so people care less. That could be the case, and that's where the culture is shifting. But these companies think that they have to look like real life, and they don't.
Yeah.
They're kind of shooting themselves in the foot because, like you said, that's a big budget. They better get sales.
And the thing is so some more stuff leaked from those emails too, where it's like Sony basically Sony, the holders of the Marvel, the holders of some of the other licensing for the video games, is like, hey, they need to sell X amount of copies of these games or we can actually terminate the license. And so they're bundling in like Spider-Man with like the PlayStation 5 bundles and stuff so that they can reach those sales numbers so they don't get the license terminated. And it's just like, man, like, how are we going to, if games are just going to keep on growing in size, whether it's because of graphics or because of whatever advancements they're trying to make, at what point does it become, GTA's got, I think they reported a $1 billion budget, which is insane for anything.
Yeah.
It'll make the money back if GTA 5 is anything to go off of.
Yeah.
But like, at what point are we just like, do we need all this? Like, I don't know. It makes me scared for the future of AAA games. Is the Last of Us Part 3, is that going to have a $200-300 million budget? And if so, like, is it really going to make that back? And then if it doesn't, we close down Naughty Dog. And then, that causes ripples throughout the rest of the industry. And then they lay off people. Like, I feel like we're almost kind of going through that right now, like an early stage of it right now with all the layoffs from the industry this year.
That's why it's so ironic, because something like The Last of Us, as far as I've been told, in terms of the game, I only know the show to go off of, but I've been told by many of the game lovers that it's so story rich. And the gameplay is kind of secondary, but it's still good. But it's very story rich. Story rich and gameplay design does not cost you $300 million plus.
Yeah.
So why are we doing this when you got a game? I mean, you got it in the palm of your hand. The Last of Us, if The Last of Us like, say The Last of Us 3 comes out, if it looks like graphically and plays like The Last of Us 1 or 2, is anyone upset? No.
See, and to really pull it aside real quick, I just looked it up. It actually was in the leaked document as well. Last of Us Part 2 cost $220 million to make. So they're not that far off.
I mean, that's still a third away. That's still, in perspective and ratio, it's pretty.
But once again, Ghost of Tsushima, a new IP, mind you, costs $60 million. Where is this like chasm of budget coming from? Horizon Forbidden West, $212 million. That's a lot. That's a lot for those games. Like, I love the Horizon games. Like, those are some of my favorite. That's one of my favorite franchises.
It sounds like they need a new budgeter. Like, they need a new.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I say if you shave off 100 million off of a lot of these that are 200 million plus, I think you might still get about the same product.
Honestly, I mean, granted, I've never ran the budget at a studio before, but I just find it hard to believe that. I find, especially the 320. The Last of Us Part 2, I can maybe understand because maybe there was a lot of R&D tech or something that they were doing in it, because they did a lot of motion capture that was kind of like the first of its kind, with like the guitar playing and everything. So maybe there was like some R&D stuff that they had to work on, but still.
Yeah,
that is pretty significant, and it makes me scared for the future of AAA games, and it kind of makes me makes it make more sense that Sony decided they were going to try to pivot to live service, because if you're doing a live service game, the budget could be astronomical, but you're going to be making money off of it for years and years and years and years versus Last of Us 2 probably not making a ton of money right now. I'm sure it's still selling decent amount of units, but it's not like it's, making them $100 million every month or something crazy like that. Like, it's not pulling in Fortnite numbers.
Right. So one other thing I wanted to add onto the hack section that I forgot to mention during the GTA 6 thing, but this transitions nicely. Did you see that the leak hacker for GTA 6 was sentenced to life in prison?
Or so I actually looked up that, and it's actually a little bit different. Indefinite service in prison,
and it's a hospitalized prison or whatever. But still,
yeah, it's a hospital prison. So it's really what it is. I guess
they're training him to be an ethical hacker, I presume.
So from what I read, because I was like, what does that mean? Like, what's the difference between life and indefinite? Like, those kind of sound like the same thing. Apparently, indefinite means until he's no longer a threat to himself or society, whenever that is deemed to be the case.
I heard conspiracies going around that the FBI was looking into him and wants to use him for honestly, ethical hacking.
You heard he like hacked it with like a broken Fire Stick and hotel Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, get that guy in the FBI right now. Like, except for then he'll hack the FBI and then leak a bunch of like documents or something, and then that'll be a whole problem. But I mean, still, yeah. So I imagine he probably won't actually end up serving life. But
those types of people scare me.
Yeah. 18 years old and can do all that stuff. I'm like, what is going on in that brain?
Yeah.
And then was there anything else in the Insomniac league? I feel like there was one more thing that I had in my head, but now I cannot remember. I'm sure we're gonna bring it up a whole bunch.
Yeah, well, there's more to come in the next few months.
Yeah,
weeks rather.
I'm sure we'll bring up more. That's all I got.
That's
my damage for this week.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you guys if you guys have any topics or anything like that on the YouTubes especially, leave anything down below in the comments. We need those comments. I mean, we always got news, period. So if you guys
find something to talk about, don't you worry.
Yeah, we'll always find something, but if you guys ever have anything, suggestions are always welcome. We definitely appreciate it.
Or if you have any questions that you want us to answer, we'll do some reader mail. We're going into the new year. Me and HP are definitely looking at expanding some things and adding in some stuff. So we would love your guys' feedback on that.
Also, let us know what you guys think about this with our new setup and stuff. Everything looks.
I do like it.
Yeah. So let us know in the comments with that. And I think that's it for now.
That's it. That's all we got. That was our damage.
See you guys. Love you.
See ya.